Well, we are supposed to be live at this time. I said to you in 2 minutes, it's already 7:15. Would like to apologize to our listeners and our viewers for the lateness of our start, 15 minutes later. And just want to say good evening to my body. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Cecil. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to be with you for such an auspicious occasion.
And what is that?
Well, we have the senior minister here in the house.
Former senior minister.
Well, I still recognize him as a senior minister.
You're like the Americans, right?
Right.
The Americans are about, once you get the position,
Right.
you will dive the position.
Well, the position cannot leave the man. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he earned the position of senior minister. So even if he's in retirement, I still recognize him, like the Americans, as the senior minister.
So
that's the kind of respect.
So tonight we will get in to know so much more of the man Reginald Austrie.
That's correct. But Cecil,
what was new this week?
Well, basically this week I was very happy, at least today, to see that the West Indies was able to chase down 294 runs. They got it 295 for 5, with Rutherford getting 113, I think, and he got the man of the match. That was very good. That was very nice. At least it's good to know when West Indies win.
You know, the very first time I saw this guy played some series ago, I knew that this guy had greatness in him. I think he's from Guyana.
That's right.
And I saw something in him. He looks like a guy who is hungry, not only for runs, but hungry to be a great cricketer.
That's right.
Compared to a guy,
Well, don't say too much now, Cecil.
I have to say,
don't say too much about it.
I mean, when he's doing well, I say that he's doing well. And Afanas has to understand now that there are many other young people like himself knocking the doors of the West Indies, and to get onto the field of play.
Right.
And he has to. He's a prolific batsman. We all know that. He has a very good style of batting. But I think it's important that Afanas must understand that Dominica and Dominicans are expecting.
Well, I think one of his problems is his mental readiness.
No, I would agree. I think
that's my thinking.
Okay, that's your thinking.
Because I believe that cricket is all about looking at the stage of the game, reading the game, and assessing what you're involved with. And that is what I believe a good cricketer does. He assesses the situation.
And I think he has that patience of assessing the game. What I think sometimes gets Afanas out is the impatient of, how would I put it, getting the runs. I mean, as I said, he's a prolific batsman, but I believe that he needs to now choose the balls that is required. Afanas was on 90 recently. I didn't see that type of ball, that kind of ball, getting any other batsman.
Well, that's why I'm telling you. In cricket, you play a lot of it. I played too, not at your level. But one of the things I learned from Arthur James is that you have to assess the game. Where the position of the game, where you are. If you're 90 runs, you know that you're only 10 away. You've done all the work already. It's just taking your time. Even if you have to work the ball around, get your singles, make sure you get your 100. You're already there. You're at the gates. There's no need now to rush things.
Christmas is coming. The goose is getting fat. And the other thing is, I see people are shopping like crazy, and it's not yet the 24th.
Let me tell you something. Let me just read for you. Of all the Christian holidays, the most loved and important by far is the one that comes exactly 1 week before the New Year, Christmas. 4 weeks before it arrives, one can tell of its coming wherever one goes, like the first day of spring. People are all around the stores. They're in the streets, they're in the churches, even in the schools. They're excited about the expectation of Christmas. So it's nothing unusual.
I saw that the parliamentary representative for the Roseau South constituency, Shakira Lockhart, Hippolyte, having tree lighting sometime on the 1st. Last night, I saw Dennis Charles Pemberton had a tree lighting, very well attended by the residents of Point Michelle. Sometime maybe this week, we'll be seeing the parliamentary representative for Roseau Central. We'll be having a Christmas village. I've seen some lights already up in some parts of the city. And Christmas looks like it's going to be a very good one this year.
Right. In fact, when I passed through the botanical gardens, I was seeing, the commencement of what is known as the Christmas village. And there seem to be a lot of exciting things this year. I noticed there were a couple, new features being brought in that I didn't see before. So, it seems to be, and they seems to have taken more space this time around, from what I was seeing, from my observation. So it seems to me everything is getting ready for Christmas.
But we have in studio of Felix Henderson. The old days we said Studio 2, but now we see the studio of Felix Henderson, or Felix Henderson Studios. We have with us Reginald Austrie. Good evening to you, Reggie.
Good evening, Cecil. Good evening, Bryn.
Good evening, sir.
And I see you guys getting involved in some interesting chit-chat conversations. And I believe you guys are on point. And I won't comment on those, because we have so much talking to do. I would expect before the night is over. And as you guys know that I have a voice problem, and I would really like to preserve as much as my voice as possible for taking full advantage of this very important opportunity that you guys are giving me to be part of this very prestigious show. I listen to you all sometimes, and it's interesting to listen to the background and the involvement of some of the people that you have brought on this program. And I know mine is not as half of exciting, but I'm happy that you guys see it fit to invite me. And I have chosen to be here, and I didn't want to do no Zoom or anything. I wanted to be in studio because I believe in studio you're having a better interaction. And so I really want to thank you all for inviting me. And I really hope that we can have a great program, a great show to maintain the reputation, Cecil, that your program has acquired over the past couple of years that you have been presenting it.
And as we are saying that, quite a number of persons are already looking up. We have Veronica Nicholas. She said, "Good evening, gentlemen. Hats out. Hats out. I wonder what does that mean? Hats out. I thought that's for Reggie." And also Sonia Williams, a good friend of Reginald Austrie.
That's right.
She said, "Good evening, family." All right. So Reggie, I know that's our family. Sonia Williams.
Okay.
Edwina London, she says that good evening, gentlemen. Locked in Houston, Texas. And Fitzroy Laura, good evening, gentlemen. And Ruben Michel, he says that he's watching. And Teresa Frigis, she's in the US of A. She said good evening to you and myself, and to also to Reggie. And Glenda Fagan says that she is watching. Reggie, already in 5 minutes, in 4 minutes, you have gone up to 474 viewers.
Interesting.
74 viewers. Peter Prosper is watching.
Oh God! I heard Peter with a kind of a subject there this afternoon, but I'll talk to him personally and privately about this one. But it was interesting. I mean, without Peter on a Sunday, it's not the same, and his program has brought a lot of comfort, a lot of joy to his listeners, whether you like him or not. But the nature of his program is one that nobody can challenge as to the impact on the listening public.
Edwina also said, good evening to you, Honorable Austrie. She said locked in Houston, and she said, welcome.
Thank you.
Randy Turner says, good night too. And Monette Cobbett Anderson. Good evening, gentlemen. I am listening from Virginia. So, Reggie, you have everybody from all about, Quite a number of people are already sending messages, and I wish I could read most of it, but we're here with you. Maria says good evening, and also Julietine. Andrew Thomas says good evening. and she is also locked in. Agatha Joseph and Tina Vital and Sandra Nicole Stans Girodel. Quite a number of people are looking on. Reggie, we're up to 93. You just said that 2 minutes ago you were 74. Now we're up to 93. Reggie.
Yeah, while you're not, Cecil,
Yes.
let me take this opportunity to thank all these people who were there with me during my long sojourn in politics. Cecil, I want to say special thank you to the residents of the Cottage constituency who have given me this 28-year opportunity to serve them inside the parliament and outside of the parliament, and to giving me the title, really, of a senior minister, and even more importantly, to having bestowed upon me the highest award in this country. It was really as a result of the actions of the residents of the Cottage constituency, who over and over again reposed their confidence in me as the representative and gave me this great opportunity. So everything that I've owned and all these fans and friends and everybody else is as a result of the consistency and persistency of the Cottage constituency in me being the parliamentary representative, which is much more important really than being a minister, because you can only get to be a minister after you become a pal rep. You first have to become a pal rep, execute your duties as a pal rep, and then that elevates you to the position of minister. So I want to say thank you from the word go to the residents of the Cottage constituency for the 20, 30 and more years. 30 years in politics. But as we may learn tonight, that I've been around much longer than that in terms of community involvement. And secondly, Cecil, I want to thank all these people who were there with me during my health challenges. And I want to make special reference to my voice. As you would have heard and as you know, I was on the verge of losing my voice. My right vocal cord practically collapsed on me. And I've been seeking medical attention for the last year. And for those of you who had heard me while I was down, or when you didn't hear me at all, you would have thought that my voice would never come back and I would never be able to come back on the radio and to do my thing, the thing I love doing most. But as you can hear it now, it's improving. I'm very, very much. I still need to take it easy. I cannot kill it. And in fact, my wife is not very happy. Again, I'm Cecil, one of your ardent listeners. She listens every Sunday. And she was saying, Bossy, I like the program, but I'm not happy that you're going on this program tonight because I don't think your voice will be able to carry you. And I said, you're a prayerful person. Get down on your knees and pray that it does. So start praying. And I really want to thank her for finally agreeing that she would allow me. But she said that if that voice seemed to be giving up on you, I'll be the first person to call and ask you to get off the People Radio. So I really want to thank her for her permission to be here. And like I said, she's one of your listeners every Sunday, Cecil. She's in the bedroom with her radio listening to the program, and I'm watching TV and listening to the program on television. But to all these people who prayed for me, Cecil, and that to me is the highlight. To all the people who prayed for me, including Auntie Sonia, and I'm not going to attempt to call names tonight because there are some very powerful prayer warriors. To all these people who gave me medicine, bush medicine, all types of medicine. In fact, there's a partner from in the U.S., a doctor, he's from Marigot, who gave me a concoction to drink made of several components, and I believe that itself is having a very positive impact on the fixing, for want of a better word, of my voice. And so I want to say to those people that I'm very grateful, I'm very thankful that God has been listening to your prayers and God has been blessing me every day. And giving me confidence that my voice will return. I don't think it will go back to where it was, where I'll be able to sing so much for you guys anymore, but He will give me sufficient voice that I'll continue to do the work, to continue to serve you, even retirement. Because I say there's no retirement for a politician. A real politician never retires. You may not be in active politics, but your work on the ground continues, your service to people continue, your advocacy for the benefit and the welfare of people continue. And that is the stage where I'm in right now. So I really want to thank these people for having stuck it out with me and still continue. And the same people who, when I call the radio, say, Reggie, time to get off there. You've been there long enough. What's wrong with you? Who say you could go there? And they're really, really cautioning me as to how to take care of my voice. And I'm really grateful. I'm Cecil for those people. I mean, I know there's some people who wish that my voice would never come back. They told me that to my face. Oh, your skin, you still lose your voice, the amount of things you say about people, you still live on. But I was doing a job, Cecil. I had no malice in mind. I hate nobody. I love everybody. But I have a job to do. And whatever tools I have at my disposals, because that's a very important job. That is a job that has to do with the lives of people, how people live, how families survive, how families make it, especially through these very difficult and challenging times. And I must speak and I must ensure that the people of Dominica get the right people to represent them. And if I have to do it again, Cecil, I will not change one bit. I'll continue to cut the grass in front of me, to unblock the roads, and to allow the people to choose and to decide who they want to lead them in this period for a better life, a better prosperity, education, health, infrastructure, jobs. That is what our people want right now. These personalities, we have to stop it. And like I said, I will use whatever tools that I have available to me to ensure that the people get what they want. So thank everybody. And as we go along, there's some people that will require special thank you, which I hope I will not have to single people out, but you have to do what you have to do, Cecil.
Okay, Reggie, 103 people are actually watching. Albert Allington Paul is watching. Gordon Henderson is watching. Queenie Vidal from Salisbury is watching. Richardson Douglas, good night, Reggie, listening from Tukari.
That's my partner from Tukari Castle.
Right. Maria Piosh, good evening. Owen Prosper, that's a good guy of yours too.
That's right.
And Elsa Prosper said she's watching. Brent Samuel said he's watching. Lauren Binois said that she's watching. Ed Riviere said that he's watching. Goldie Williams and quite a number of people are just on. Fitzroy Laura, they're actually watching. That's on. Right. 145, Reggie, people are actually watching at this time. I just said 103. It's now 145. Glenn Peter said that he's watching. And wow, Reggie, you have really broken the record. 153 as we speak.
Right. The thing about it, one must say that you, Reginald Austrie, is one of the most controversial figures on the island. Whether you like it or not, there's some people who love to hate you, and there's some people who just love you. Controversy all the way. And let me tell you something. Dominicans like Ororo. They like controversy.
So you call me a Ororo man?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I just said Dominicans.
I just check it.
Dominicans, boy, they like that. Don't worry about them. They will listen. Some of them will not call, but I tell you, they're glued. They want to hear what you're saying and where we are going with that show.
Cecil, before we get into the thing, just let me tell you, okay? The thing about it is, when I'm on the platform...
Before you continue.
Oh, sorry.
Before you continue.
Yeah, you're the boss of the show.
No, I just want to say to you, Austrie Lockhart is also watching.
That's right.
But you have a very good friend. You have a very good friend that's watching.
Let me tell you, by Austrie, that's where I used to go and in the days, that's where I used to go and eat my Ted Beth. and also would call me and say, someone in your bag I was and would wash that down with a black label. That was the days, man, Austrie. Thank you very much, my brother. You've been a tremendous support.
And I should tell you that your good friend Mervyn Paul says that he's watching.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Yes, he's my partner too, but you know, sometimes I don't know what those passing them fellas head and a streak of madness sometimes. But it's okay, no hard feelings, you know. He's my partner, we were together. I remember Mervyn Paul, Granny used to work with my mom in Cottage when he was going to primary school, and that's where Mervyn used to be in my yard, in my mother's yard. That's where they used to cook his lunch and so on. So me and Mervyn Paul goes back a long way. But like I said, sometimes something does pass in them fellas. But that happens.
Yes.
And let me congratulate him. I heard now he's now ordained a pastor.
He's a pastor now?
Yeah, he's a pastor now.
Mr. Going Church?
I want to wish him well in his ministry. And you know, we'll find the opportunity where we can probably sit and talk again. As you know, Cecil, that I never responded to him, so I don't think that there's no hard feeling between us. He said what he had to say. I guess he had his reasons for saying it. Half of it was not true anyway. 75% was wrong information, but that's how it goes once you're in politics. My brother, you have to prepare to take what you get.
Okay, now let's go to the program now, Reggie.
We're in the program
a nice background. What do you think about that background, Reggie?
No, that's beautiful. As you can see, I started that WAF as PAL rep many years ago when Neville Wade was on the port, and I think Badwell and Neville Wade, and we were doing some work on the Rosa port, and there was some balance of some material that were left, and I had discussions with the port, its management, with the board, and we decided that a little jetty in Tukari would do well to serve the fishermen, serve the community. And I made some representation, and we got the irons down, and Neville brought his boat, and we piled them in. It remained incomplete for a number of years, over 10 years, remained incomplete until Roosevelt Skerritt decided to make some monies available. It has been damaged by several hurricanes. The planks disappear, and so but the foundation remains. And most recently, the Honorable PAL Rep, Roland Roy, my cousin, and we can talk about him a little later if we find the time. He sort of repaired it. I think that's the second time he's doing some temporary repairs to it. I think he has some long-term plan, $1 million plan. I think the last time he told me it was going to cost him $1.6 million to do a permanent job on it. But because that money was not available, he got Cobra and the boys, and they did some temporary work, especially for our poker run, which we do in August of every year. And that's what it is. Very beautiful, very useful. The Workers' Party said it was my duty for me to bring in my arms and my drugs, but that again is cheap politics, but we have to be careful that when we get involved in this cheap personal politics, we don't destroy other people's character. That's one thing. And you can go back, Cecil, that my politics have never destroyed any characters, any, and you can ask me about any one of these incidents that people would accuse me of, and you will see nowhere I defamed anybody. I didn't go after anybody's character. I may have made fun of you, which is part of my style, but never to defame or to disenfranchise anybody. And that, yes, very beautiful. Tukari, a very beautiful site. I've been working on this tourism project for the last 40 years, even before I was a PAL rep. I mean, all these bars, and you see on the shoreline, they were constructed by me and my team, and we'll get into that in my early days of politics. Put up these buildings, and we started doing entertainment, bringing all these bands, every single band in Dominica, from Swinging Stars to WCK to all these bands, B-Blood and Caribbean. They had the Caribbean vibes, and all these bands have performed in Tukari at one time or the other. As you know, Cecil, our village feast was feast to behold. I mean, Tukari Fet Satatwen had reached the level of one of the biggest feasts in the country after a while, and I believe that the potential still remains. We just need to exert the energy and do what we have to do, and Tukari will get back to its glory days.
Yes, Reggie, and in the background you can also see a beautiful home.
Yeah, well, that's my family home there. That is probably one of the 6 or 7 homes that the United Workers' Party continue to speak about, which is, again, is an untruth. They say I have 6 homes and 7 homes, insinuating that I build those homes and I supposed to have obtained a lot of money more. No, but Cecil, this is just my family home, one in Tukari, and I have another house on top of the hill. And I started the construction of a farmhouse in another area. But no, Cecil, yeah, so this is my family home, and that's where we live, me and my wife and my children. When they're here, most of them are out, but that's our family home right there in Tukari in the background. Beautiful to wake up in the morning on the porch and to look in front of you, that calm sea. You can see whales passing, you can see the ferry, you can see all these yachts. Beautiful scenery, very beautiful community, Tukari.
Okay, Reggie, let's go to the life of Reginald Austrie. Many people are of the view that you are from Tukari. Some persons believe you are from Cottage. Some people believe that you're from Cassibros. Your dad moved all about. Help us to have a better understanding.
Some people even think he's from Campbell.
Right, some persons think you're from Campbell.
And they're all correct.
So help us to have a greater understanding.
Okay, Cecil, so my mother is from Cottage. My dad is from Castlebrus. But in the days, we had an Inspector Austrie, my dad's granduncle, who was a policeman in Capuchin. And he got married to a sister of the late Culan Dubois from Cottage. And then
you need to tell us who is Mr. Dubois, parliamentary representative?
Culan Dubois was the former Labour parliamentary representative for the Cottage constituency in the days, in the Patrick John days, I believe.
Yes, in 1975 to be
that's
precise.
That's right. He was a pal rep. He came from England, retired from England, came back and won the seat for the Dominican Labour Party. That was before the Freedom Party became the dominant force, and then we can talk about that too if we find a chance to do it tonight. And he married this lady, Virginia Dubois, and so on, and she went to Castlebrus, where they ran a grocery store, big store and bakery, and so they had business. And my mother, as a young 15-year-old, just left school, she went to work with them and to live with them because they were related. And there she met my dad. And I think she went there in 1954. In 1958, they had their first child was in 1958. My bigger brother, who retired as an inspector of police. And so that was I wasn't there yet. That was my first brother. My mom has like 8 children, 2 girls and 6 boys with my dad. My dad had more, but my mom only had 8 with my dad. And then my brother was born in 1958. They stayed in Castlebrus, and then he was transferred to Kulibistri in 1958-5960. And my sister, the second child, Amy, who is now in the Virgin Islands in St. Croix, she was born in 1961, and I was born in Kulibistri in 1962. So that's the Kulibistri connection. I was born in Kulibistri, right there. I'm in the village. They spend a lot of time in the presbytery with Ivana and these people. And then when my dad went to school in Antigua, he went to the Teachers College in Antigua at the time. My mom went back to Castlebrus. When my dad came back 1 year later, he was transferred to Grand Fond. At that time, the family basically moved. The entire family moved. So we moved to Grand Fond. And I spent some time in Grand Fond, got to know the people of Grand Fond, and became like everybody else. But my personality itself, which we'll talk about later, was something else. So, and then after Grand Fond, he was transferred to Thibault. So that's where we went. I went with him. I was a young man then. We went to Thibault, and I got to know the people in Thibault. Shortly after Thibault, I think he was transferred to Clifton somewhere. I don't have it in sequence. But then we settled in the little village called Monalui. That's a little village, a little hamlet between Tukari and Tantan, right on the top of the hill. If you pass there now, you will see some lovely homes built by British returning expats. They build their homes. Lovely, lovely, pretty little village. Just before you start going down the hill into Tukari, you leave Savonpai, you have the flat, and then you start going down this hill, which was repaired by me and the Dominican Labour Party. Terrible hill. People were afraid to go down that hill there. But we did a great job on it. It was a 1 lane with fires on both sides. Right now we turn it into a 2 lane road. So my mom settled. And then my father went to Paybush and Atkinson. And then in 1970 he was transferred to he was in Saint-Sauveur and was transferred to Campbell. Now, at that time, my mom thought that I was a handful, and me and another brother, and she says, look, my brother, you know how, because I was problem. I was problem, Cecil. I was troublesome, always in a problem. Somewhere that would take the regular child 15 minutes, it took me 2 hours. I would not come back. I was in some fracas. Little boy in some deba, in some problem, giving my mother stress, my brother. And she said, look, my brother, I cannot deal with this, so you'll have to go with your father. I was not even in high school yet. So when my father was going to Campbell, he had to pass for a week to clear up Saint-Sauveur. So I went into Saint-Sauveur. Don't forget, we're from Castlebrus. Went into Saint-Sauveur. And then in 1970, we went to Campbell. And that's where I went to school. And that's where I did my common entrance exams at the Maho Primary School at the time. I passed my exams. And then I went to the Portsmouth Secondary School. And that itself is a whole story by itself. So if you ask me where I'm from all these areas. My father went to teach, because once I went there, I became, I don't want to say a celebrity, that's too much of a big word, but because of my personality, troublesome, always talking, always teasing somebody, always in a problem, and many people got to know me and embrace me, because also a very humorous person, very kind-hearted, well-loved by everybody. And that really, Cecil, I believe, was preparing me for what I had become later on in my life, which was a politician that is still loved by the vast majority of the Dominican people.
Someone said that PSS is just a story by itself. What does that person mean?
Well, boss, at PSS, I did everything. Well, first of all, when I went to PSS, my mom paraded me. We had my uncle had a house in Lakou, and my mom paraded me through the streets of Lakou, telling everybody in Lakou to look out for that little fella of mine, that big-head little boy of mine, because he's troublesome and he have a propensity to get into trouble. So please look out for him. And so I became the child of Lakou. You understand? I became the child of Lakou. So everybody would look out for me at 1 o'clock. They would take me to their homes. They would give me food. And I was in every single group at PSS. Geography Society, Debating Society, Drama Club, cricket, football. And I used that opportunity to stay back after school. So when my brothers and sisters who at PSS would school finish at 1, we had to walk those days. We walked through the swamp, walked through Lakou, walked through Tatan. We had to remove our clothes at that house, leave our shoes in the house. Sometimes we walked barefoot. Sometimes we had a toeless. My bigger brother thought he could make shoes, so he took a canvas and tire and cut those tires and make shoes. Because in those days, teachers' salary were not like, so when what happened, my father left. And he came down every month, and because these days you had Freeton trucks, they were not like real buses and so on. So he used to travel by truck. So when he would come down on the Friday, month and Friday, he got his salary. He would come on Friday, give my mother what he's giving her, and on Monday morning he would head back up to whatever area he was supposed to teach. And my mother had to spend the whole month with the little what he gave her. And so we really grew up with our mom. And so when my brothers and them would reach home at 2 o'clock, 2:30, them boys were already home. I never got home until 5, 6, 7 because I had to stay to all these meetings. And I met many people. And like I say, that was the birth of my interaction with the Cottage constituency. From that very early age, I was already loved by many of these people. They looked out for me. Reginald, what you doing on the road still, boy? So long. Darkness coming, boy. Can you go home alone? And so on. And I got to know many people. What I didn't know is God was preparing me for the life that I was to live, and the interaction I would have had with people, and the way I would change people's lives. And I don't think they ever knew it. It was a sort of divine intervention. That is what I was destined to be. And all these challenges and opportunities and interactions, I believe, was just preparation for where I am today and where I was yesterday and where I am today.
Someone said that, Reggie, you were a Kawat. And Peto Savre said, good evening to see you and to hear you. Were you a Kawat, Reggie?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. I mean, it depends to what you mean by that. I never got into trouble, though. I had my little teenage fights like all other young boys playing. I went to set trap. I caught birds. I caught dove. I went spear fishing. I never ran into difficulties with the police. I never went to court. I was just troublesome. And if troublesome means coward, then yes, I was a coward. I was troublesome.
Now, Jay Dupi said that you were always with me every afternoon after school was over.
That's right. John is. In fact, I used to eat. His mother, Masina, used to ensure that she left lunch for me every single afternoon. I'd go by John Jay used to play the guitar. So I tried playing the guitar, but I don't think that was where my talent and my skills were. So yes, I was with him, Jonas. His name is Jonas. He had a brother, Pernell. And right there in Lakou, there I used to spend a lot of time there. And my food, if I didn't pass, my food recovered. By the fireside, I'm keeping warm. And we did spend a lot of time together, a lot of time in Lakou. And these people turned up being some of my major supporters, people who would kill for me politically if it came to that.
No, Reggie, I realize that you have been to so many different parts of Dominica. You were not able to settle for sure because you had to find yourself because of your father's job. What's primary school, while going to school, you favored at that period?
Well, I think I was very young, but I think when I got to the Savant Pie Primary, still primary, and that is where I believe, that was home for me. So I was familiar with the environment. I knew the bushes very well. I knew where the fat poke trees were. I knew where the sort of Moe sieve trees were. I knew where the doves were. I knew where to go and shoot my birds on a Saturday. So that Savant Pie Primary was really good. But Campbell was extraordinary. I enjoyed Campbell. Campbell in those days, that was in the early 70s. Campbell had its own unique excitement. It was a unique place. It had its excitement. It had its fun time. There was no sea there, but the mountains and the rainfall and the life that the people of Campbell lived at the time. It was mainly an agricultural society. And the people survived basically on agriculture and hunting. So they hunted manikou and agouti and wild pigs. And I got involved in some families there. I got involved very, very close. I had to sleep with those families and live the life. I lived the life. I ate out of the pots. I stayed in the kitchen. And I got to know them and got a sense at that time of how people live and what people were lacking and how these people lived a natural life. And to me, Campbell Primary was a great experience. I think that's the only school in which I fought, though. Great experience, I fought with a girl. I gave her one punch, and that way I couldn't give her another one. One hard punch on her face, and that was it. We're friends, very, very friends today. That's where I met Father Reginald too, at Campbell, and my whole spirituality began to grow. He was an acolyte with a priest called Father Van, and that's where I first met. I'm Reginald Flair as an acolyte in Campbell. So Campbell holds great memories, great experiences for me, and many of those, like I said, everything I did in my childhood days, in my teenage days, it all propelled me into one direction, to become a politician, to care for people, to seek to change lives. And that is what I have done, sincerely, from my heart. That is why I consider myself to be a politician, a different kind of politician, because I was dedicated, I was committed, and there was no reward. In those days, there was no reward in being a politician, and to me, Campbell holds a lot of experience for me.
Michael Roye said good evening, and Margaret Jules Roye also said good evening.
Yes, Margaret Jules Roye. Everybody knows Margaret, former principal, former education, very solid and staunch advisor and supporter of the Dominican Labour Party. She basically held on. I can say that now because nobody can victimize her. She's retired and held on the Clifton community. Almost single-handedly. She assisted me during school. She would get the names of the students for the buses. She did a lot of work, political work, which she did through her ministry on my behalf. Good night, Margaret, and good night, I'm Mikey and the children.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I did was when I went as principal in Campbell, we have the logbook. We have a book. All the principals keep the log. And every activity that takes place on a daily basis at the school has to be recorded. And I did read where his father documented that he was involved in a fight with a girl. In fact, I was able to see the house where the father lived, because myself and his father were very, very, very good friends, a very pleasant man. So, Reggie, your time in Campbell, the register where your name is, I was able to see that. And I could.
And the schoolyard, Brian, the schoolyard was the playground.
The playground,
The schoolyard was the playground. So even after school, most of the children who live close by would come back in the schoolyard and would sit there, would chat, would play, and it was really, really, really fun. That's why we played our cricket and we played our games, and it was really, really fun time for me in Campbell.
Your wife said that she's watching, hearing, and listening.
Yes, I was waiting. She listened for the voice, so when the voice start cracking off for the time to come home. But yeah, I know she would say so. She listens every Sunday. She listens to your program.
No, Reggie, you would have had that community experience, but I need to know the spiritual part of you as a boy growing up. What about the church? What did you do with the church as a boy growing up? Were you an acolyte?
No, I was never a heavy church goer, but my spirit, I think I had the spirit of discernment. I had the spirit of love. I had the spirit, even if I didn't realize it, of doing what God wanted His people to do, to care for the sick, to shelter the homeless, to feed the hungry, and that really characterized my sojourn in politics. Where I did all these things to help people. That's what made me a formidable person. I was never greedy. My hands, even today, my hands are very wide open. I help people. I hate suffering, my brother. I hate suffering, and I read my history, and I saw how black people suffered. I saw the pain that black people and less fortunate people had to go through. I saw the challenges that people had in education. I saw where in Campbell in particular we had to walk, brain, from Maho to Campbell on these old rocky roads. And I saw the suffering of people. And I pledged myself that I would like to be a champion for the less fortunate, not only in the cottage constituency, but right across the country. And that is why right across the country, Cecil, and I said that any constituency you go to and you hear the name Reggie, people will start to smile, because I think I have touched the lives. The Dominican Labour Party and the parties that give me an opportunity through the ministries that I hold. I've touched the lives of many, many Dominicans. And that is, to me, where my spirituality lies. But yes, I was in the church. I was a member of the church committee. I think I was probably chairman or president at the time. I was very involved in the village feast, so I had to be on the church committee, assisting, and I was one of the main organizers of the other aspects of the feast, and I sat on the church committee meetings, and I helped to guide the church along. But no, I was never a heavy church person. But my spirituality, what I felt for people, and how I moved to assist people, I believe that was the hallmark of my. I made first communion. I got confirmed. I got married. I'm still a devout Catholic, but I just wish that I could tighten up a little more. On my church going frequency, on that is what I wish. But I go to all churches and I mix with everybody. I went to the Adventist church. I went to the Pentecostals. I went to Christian Union Church. I go to all churches, because I believe Christ can be found in all churches. I believe it's on your inner self that makes the difference. I believe it's how you are on the inside. This outward thing we have, where men have Bible walking up and down on the street corners and preaching and shouting, Lord, Lord, Lord. It's not those who shout the loudest are the ones that will reach the kingdom. Because if it was the behavior of some of these loudly church people with the Bible, their lives, Cecil, even you and Brain, living a better spiritual life than them. In fact, they use the spirituality of theirs as a cover to cause mischief, to spread hatred, to spread malice, to lie, and to support people in wanting to cause harm and mayhem and chaos in our country. And this is not the spirituality that God has asked us to do. He asks us to look out for each other, to be tolerant. Yes, we can have our views, but we must not use our views for destructive purposes.
Decima Roye said, Amen. Lester Jibby is watching. Antonia Doctrove is watching. Lana is also watching. And Sandra Norris says, well said, Mr. Austrie. No, Reggie.
Thank you.
Your father, as a principal, do you consider him a middle class at the time? And the reason why I'm asking this is because I want to go to the area that talks about your upbringing at home, the social upbringing at home?
No, I wouldn't call my father middle class. My father was a bright fella, and my father just happened to be a teacher. He started teaching right out of primary school, so he didn't go to a secondary school or to a college or to university. The salary was small at the time, but in those days, teachers and policemen and their children were regarded as more, for want of a better word, than everybody else's children. And even some of the people in the community, they recognize that your father was a teacher, your father was a headmaster. And that is why in Tantan in particular, I won the admiration, because I was in the ghetto. I spent a lot of time, school time and youth time and young time in the ghetto with the ghetto youths. And the ghetto youths regarded me as the son of a teacher. And how could the son of a principal be so involved in us? Mr. must be a really cool guy. And that is why I was able to win over the hearts and the souls of the ghetto youth. And got them to vote for me when that time came and became a politician. In Tatan there, I had Bernard Benjamin and Suddenly, who passed me, so rest in peace, and Kwashi and Bertrand. These were the boys. We did everything together in Tatan as young men. We went to bathe in the river, we went fishing, we went spear diving. So to answer your question, no, I don't think my father was middle class. My brother, because I can tell you, when my father gave my mother the little couple $100, that was her share to look after us. It couldn't do the first week. In fact, what she did, there was a particular supermarket in Portsmouth where she had a credit account, and every Saturday she would go there and take a little credit, and she would pay at the end of the month. And most of the times I was the one who would go and do the shopping on a Friday afternoon. I knew what she wanted as a youngster, because I knew everybody. I knew everybody. I interacted with everybody. And I know when she couldn't pay the entire bill, and she said, well, give him $200 for me still and tell him I'll give him the rest next month. My mother was the one who made the garden. We made garden, planting yams and food. My mother was a seamstress, and my mother had to go to the river. River was our place every Saturday. So no, I don't consider my father to be of the middle class. It depends too how you consider principals of schools at this time. But the income and the monies that came in did not reflect. I sleep on the floor, Cecil.
That's what's going to come too. I want to get that story, Reggie.
We had a 2-bedroom wooden house that we bought from some granduncle. We had to repair it, and like I told my mother, I had 8 children, and at least every time there was about 6 of us, and we slept on the floor, make our cabin on the floor. Like everybody else, we didn't have couch and bed. Like everybody, we slept on the floor. We carried water on our head from Tatan. I carried a lot of water from the Tatan River to Monalwe. We had no electricity at the time. I used to go for dry wood. We had our fouye diffé. So every Saturday, and sometimes during the week when the wood finished, we had to go for loads and loads and loads of dry wood and pack under the dresser. We still had a dresser outside of the kitchen where we wash our plates and scrub our bums. We had our pig. We fed our pig. We cook our pig food. So no, we lived the life that everybody in and around us, the neighbors, lived at the time, which most Dominicans at that time, well, I don't want to begin to make exceptions, but no, and that was the life. That was the life we lived. We used to live after school. Me and my brothers used to go down with our fishing gun, and we had to go and shoot fish and catch fish. There's a particular fish they used to call the fig that came in late at 6 o'clock in the Tibouinage. It came close to shore. We used to go and come back with pongs and pongs of that, and that is what we had for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner. I mean, I ate my flour pap and dry bread, for breakfast, and my cooking butter, because it was tough on my mom. It was really tough. My mom used to sew a dress at those times for $2 and $5. That's what she used to make for making a whole clothes, my brother. And that is how we lived. That is how I lived. I used to get one new pant for Christmas. Every Christmas, there was this tailor in Portsmouth, Mr. Emil Vidal. And we used to buy a cloth, and he used to make one pant for Christmas. I work with patch pants. So I know, so I don't consider my life or my father to be of middle class. He just happened to be the principal of a school, but not living at home in the house. His income had to be divided into 2 because he had to provide for himself for a month, and he had to provide for us for a month.
No,
I'm
no.
not sure that answers your question.
No, Reggie, I want it did, but I also want us to break it down. Where during the week, tell us what a breakfast, a lunch was like, a supper. I want you to break it down for us. I know that some people would say they would have had eggs, they would have had bread.
On a Sunday, Cecil, like everybody else, you had your best meal. Lunch, breakfast, supper, because you went to the market on Saturday. Unless you went to the market on Saturday, you bought your little vegetables. But the thing is, we used to leave home very early. We used to leave home very early because we had to walk to school, I told you. So between 6 and 6:30, we're already on the road, probably having done 2 buckets of water from Tukari or from Tata and carry 2 buckets of water up the hill and bathe in the basin because there was no bathroom. So we had to bathe in the basin. We took our baths and we started walking from 6:30 to get to Portsmouth by 7:30. Take your time and walk for you to get to school. So sometimes it was a cup of cocoa and a bread. Maybe sometimes you'd have a fried fish. Sometimes you'd put butter in that. You would have to hold your bread and eat
Yellow butter?
Huh?
Yellow butter?
Cooking butter.
Sometimes cooking butter, the yellow salted butter. Sometimes that is what you had. It was better when the bread was hot, but when the bread wasn't hot, my brother, you had to eat that. And we had to lunch when we came back from Portsmouth. Lunch was at 2:30 when you came back, and you'd have a little change, a little 25 cents for the recess. There's a lady in Tatan who used to have tablet, and another one right there, my Edison, used to bake bread. So it was bread and tablet. And then along the swamp, they had a lot of guavas. Between Purple Turtle and Tatan, a lot of guavas. So we spent a lot of time in the guava field. You know, I was more fortunate because remember I didn't go home. I used to stay down. I had to go to geography class. I had to go to drama group. I had to go and play cricket. And right there by Johnny's there, I would get lunch. So I was more fortunate than them because I used to have something to eat. Because of me in Lakou there, but they were not into that. It's straight from school, change your clothes, and start walking. I was from school, change my clothes, head by the lady there, have something to eat, and that was it. So there was nothing special about your lunch and your breakfast, kakoti. You know, and well, of course, you shop on Saturday, so you had a little milk. Sometimes you had to eat your flour pap when things were bad. You ever had flour pap, Cecil?
You're asking me?
You know what that is?
You ever had rice pap?
Well, I had Tanya. I think maybe I had plantain or vegans, but it was flour. It's you boil the flour. It's porridge.
Yes.
It's porridge.
Yes. To answer your question, yes, I did.
Yeah, you put
many times.
And let me tell you, and at the time that was good. Now, normally it was a lot of rice, you know, because that was considered to be cheap. And then you would have your fish and your sauce, good gravy. Well, our parents in those days, they cooked very well. Mm-hmm. So anything they cook for you would taste nice. But sometimes, my brother, you had to roast the balao or roast the kai and mix out a little oil and in the white rice and had that for lunch. And maybe in the night time you'd have tea and bread. Lime bush tea and bread. But we were never hungry. We were never starved. We were never hungry. We were never starved. The food might not have been as nutritious as it's supposed to be, but our parents always provided for us at all times. There was not one day I went to bed without eating. There was not one day I went to Portsmouth to school without breakfast. I was never hungry, my brother. Never hungry.
Sky juice, lime squash.
A lot of lime squash, but we liked it. Mm-hmm. We liked it. We enjoyed it. Nothing better than a lime juice and a bread, you know. And sometimes you'd have an afternoon when things was a little rough at lunchtime. You'd have your little afternoon before you had your supper. Of course, provisions was a staple, apart from the fact that my mom made garden. But, you know, the neighbor would always pass something. There was always breadfruit. Roast breadfruit was the order of the day. You would have some breadfruit. You'd have a hand of fig, a hand of cocoy, you know. So we ate. Then you had your beans. So we ate. It was probably not a balanced diet, but we were never hungry.
No lights, no flushing water.
There was no flushing water in those days.
What about toilets?
There was no light. Well, your toilet was outside. You had your latrine on the outside. I remember when we got lights in the 80s, when Alan Carbon was still Parliament, and to get those lights, we had to dig the holes ourselves. the villagers got together and we had to dig the holes ourselves. There was no television, there was no lights. That's how we got lights. When we got water between Tatton and Cottage, I remember the boys we had to run our own pipes. Nick Croy and those boys from Tatton and run our own pipes for us to get water and for us to get lights. We had to. I can see them men now, the Freedom Party people, digging the holes, because there was always this political divide, which you can come to if we have the time to do it. But we had to dig our own holes to plant our own poles. So Domlek or whoever the company was could come around the lines and we could get lights. But we got lights late in Cottage, in spite of the fact that Anka was Minister of Communication and Works for some years. He just couldn't help it. It's not because he didn't want to, but the means were just not there at the time. So yes, so there was no light, so we had to start in lamp. The kerosene lamp was the order of the day, and we were bullseye in the kitchen. I mean, that's why nobody can make a better bullseye than me. and you can make the one, Cecil, where you put the bouchon at the top of the bottle, so you have to bend it every time it's dying. Or sometimes you put the cloth in it to touch the bottom of the bottle, so the cloth itself was sucking up the kerosene, so you have to bend it over less frequently for you to get it lighted. But that was the life at the time. That was the life at the time. And I have no regrets because it made us what we are. We went to school. We went to PSS, maybe had one shirt or two shirts. We had to wear the clothes, but it made us what we are because our view was we do not want to continue to live like that, and we do not want our children. And we saw the sacrifices that our parents made. It was not easy. Students from Clifton and Capuchin had to walk. I was right there in Mount Albury, closer to Tatton, but those from Capuchin had to walk, meaning that they had to leave Capuchin and Clifton at 5:30. And they would meet us on the road, walking to go down to PSS and walking back up. They never got to their home until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That was what it was, life for me, for us in that era. That is how it was. And we didn't do too badly at all. We passed our O-levels. But I don't think many of us went to college because the college couldn't.
We will come to that.
And then we went straight to
Becky said, see my pit bull friend Reggie. Politics aside, that's my brother. That's my boy.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like that. I like that. Reggie, tell us a little bit now more of, after passing your common entrance, because you said that you sat your common entrance while you were in Campbell.
Yes.
So that means you would have sat your common entrance in the Maho primary school, at the Maho primary school.
That's right.
And then you went to Portsmouth Secondary School.
Yeah.
Why Portsmouth and not SME?
Or
grammar school?
Because there was this policy where my grandmother lived in Castle Bruce. And, Portsmouth Secondary School was there. I live in Mount Albury, so transportation was easier. And mom would have been in a better position to take care of us. We were closer to the school. Okay?
So you're saying that after you sat the common entrance, you all went to Dong North?
Yes. Went north. About 3 or 4 of my brothers, they sat their common entrance at the Castle School because every year when one child passed the exam, another one would go up to it, my grandmother. So my grandmother raised about 4 or 5 of my brothers, but I was too troublesome. She couldn't deal with me, so I had to stay with my mom and my dad all the time. So when my bigger brother passed, they sent him down to PSS to go to school. Another brother went up to my grandmother. When he passed, he came down to Portsmouth. Another brother went to my grandmother. When that one passed, so all of us went to the Portsmouth Secondary School because it was easier. We were home. The rigors of a child going to high school would be better handled. Transportation, we didn't have to spend time in Roseau and go and board and lodge in Roseau. We were right there in Portsmouth. So it was very easy to make that decision that we go to the Portsmouth Secondary School.
While at the Portsmouth Secondary School, give us your journey at school from first form to fifth form. Let's see what it was like.
Well, I went to PSS. Troublesome followed me there. I repeated one of those forms in either first or second, I think. I repeated one of those forms. But I got involved. I got involved in many extracurricular activities at PSS, especially debating. I was always in argument, always in a discussion. I'm always talking. And then I was part of the drama group. In fact, we did a couple productions and came to Roseau. Arundel Thomas was our drama teacher at the time, the same Arundel Thomas.
You mean the same one?
Yes, the same Arundel Thomas and Anthony Lockhart. They were teachers at the Portsmouth Secondary School. Then you had Aflin Murdoch and Judith Pestina Garway, and Miss Juliana Magloire. These were some of the teachers that were, and they were part of the drama group. They were the ones coordinating the drama group. And we did a couple plays. We did one, Small Matters, where we did a couple shows outside of Portsmouth. We went to RBD Cinema, then outside of Portsmouth, we did one at the Parish Hall and so on. And then we did a French play with former PS, Helen. She's from Penville. I remember that play very well. We acted in that. We were in the choral group, singing group that was Afflin and Judith Pestina. That these were the babies. So we were on stage. I'm singing choral. We did some stuff during the independence time and so on. So I was actively involved in that and continued talking and debating. And that is where my whole love for politics and debating. And that was in second form. That would have been about 13 years, and we did that. But at 13 years, Rosie Douglas had a daughter, Debbie, who attended the PSS. I'm not sure whether she was coming from Canada, where she was over foreign, and she came in. And one of those days, she said, Reggie, you're going to meet my dad. Rosie said, I told my dad about you. I told him there's a chatterbox liquor fella in my class at school, and I would like you to meet him. And Rosie said, well, bring him to see me. And I went to see Rosie. He was living upstairs of the Sant Market at the time. And he said, so it's okay, so you're Reginald Austrie? I said, yes. And, well, Debbie told me a lot about you. I said, yes. And he says, you talk a lot. I said, yes. And you have some conscience. I said, yes, I follow. I've been not really understanding at the time. But yes, I was in the Marcus Garvey movement, and I was advocating in the Cottage constituency. As a little kid, I was already able to influence some of the ghetto youth and so on. And because I was a smart boy, I was the PSS boy and so on. And he says, okay, you must come and see me and talk with me. Let's talk. I say, yeah. And then I continued going to see Rosie, and that is where the politics really began to show itself. And then 15, all 14, 15, I politicking, I attended all these meetings, these closed-door meetings at this time. Patrick John used to then we became part of the alliance, the power factor.
So all that time you are in PSS?
All that time I'm in PSS, not doing my work and just there following politics and following these big guys. And Para saw me too, and Para and Rosie were almost like, which one could grab my attention? At this time, we were all left movement together. We were all from the left. So I became a member of the left. And I began advocating and indoctrinating myself in the left politics. And then we started. In fact, my first public speech was with the Alliance in 1980, when Para contested the Cottage constituency, and Hartley Aaron, Dr. Philbert Aaron, and myself. I think we were the two youngest politicians.
We will come to that, Reggie.
Okay.
Yeah. I still want to stay a little bit. I want to get a little bit more of PSS.
Yeah. So
the things that you did at PSS.
So that really was my life at PSS. But my life began transforming once I was in second form, and I had met Rosie, and I had met Para. And that's where the transformation began.
While at school, sports. Anything to do with sports?
I was never no starring, but I played football. I played a lot of football, and I played cricket. And I played football. I'm not sure if it had basketball at the time, but I never a great fan of basketball. But I played a lot of cricket. I represented my school. I represented my house. Athletics, I tried long jump, but I was lazy. I didn't have time for that. That wasn't my calling, to get up and go and train. When Christy Alcide and John Burnett and Humphrey Magloire, and all these guys would go to school and say, well, we went to run at 5 o'clock in the morning and show me how their muscles looking all right. Boss, I wasn't into that. I was there, go the day sports day. I go there, do my magie, run, jump, never win nothing. But that wasn't my calling.
That was Slim Reggie, right?
Yes, that was Slim Reggie. But that wasn't my calling. I did it because everybody else was doing it. But I was never passionate and lost about it. I love my cricket. I played village cricket. I played school cricket. I played house cricket. I played a lot of cricket. I was a wicket keeper. In fact, Cecil, I'm not sure if you're already in DBS. Remember when DBS played played the Parliament in the 80s in St.
In
Joseph.
St. Joe, I was there.
I was a wicket keeper.
Yes, you were.
You know,
I thought you were just making that up that day.
No, man, I was a wicket keeper.
With Blackmore bowling wide for you.
Well, yeah,
and having you to dive and to try to get some.
Yeah, no, man, I was a wicket keeper of class. If I'd take my cricket seriously, I would have made the West Indies team. Because what I seen them Papi Show them fellas doing there now. You know, as a wicketkeeper batsman, I would have made the team, but I didn't take it like very serious. It was just fun and entertainment. You know, to me it was fun and entertainment. That wasn't my calling. I was called in a different direction, which I paid more attention and paid more time to.
Who in PSS you think would mold you or play the important role in your life, in showing you the direction? You said that you were a troublesome boy. Which teacher or teachers that would have helped you to understand the true value as to where you can go?
I think Afrin Murdoch, she was a history teacher, I think, and English. She was history and English teacher, and I think she saw something. Coming from a political family, I think she saw something, yeah, in me that she feel that she could move. But Mr. Belloni, Vernice's husband, who was the principal at the time, he came from England and he had a passion to see poor people children succeed. And when he spoke to us in assemblies, he always told us about the sacrifices being made by our parents to have us here, and how we must not waste our time, and how we must take education, and education is so precious, and how we must treat it seriously. Bello was very impressive. Afrin Murdoch, but generally, because I was generally liked, you know, I was troublesome, but I was very humorous, you know, and I made everybody laugh, and it was fun. So everybody, and once they kept me under the wrap, then I was a good student. I was a good student. I did my work. I followed to school, but it's just that you couldn't leave me on my own for too long.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask him a question.
Because I would start to disturb and make people laugh and joke and treat the whole thing like fun.
Well, I know, for instance, around that time, you had a lot of the teachers reading Karl Marx,
yes,
communism.
That's right.
You had Arundel Thomas there. You had Mr. Lockhart, Tony Lockhart, language.
Yeah.
And I know, for instance, there were the work and study groups at the time.
That's right.
Highly influencing students at secondary schools.
So it wasn't just one teacher, Cecil, or two or three teachers. I think generally teachers got to like me, except my maths teacher, because I couldn't pass his maths test. And I'll never forget that the highest mark I got in high school was 26% on a maths test.
Wow.
I was not a maths person. I didn't pay attention. So the only teacher who probably didn't like me in his class, and I was very argumentative. I challenged him. I asked a lot of questions, especially in the history class. I was not a science student, so all this chemistry and biology and physics story didn't turn me on. That didn't excite me. But history, English, literature, geography, a little French, and a little Spanish. These were the subjects that really captivated me. So I was always going to be an art student. As to how I ended up at Ross University is another story.
That we have to come to.
You know, but I was an art student. And so all my teachers really liked me, because I was just troublesome. I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful. I was not disobedient. I was just troublesome. You know, I was just troublesome, and, you know, expected, unexpected, make the children laugh, disturb the class sometimes. But generally, I was a very good student.
Yeah. In terms of staying with the left, were you involved while still at school in the construction of any of those projects, like the building of the bridges? Did you do anything with Para?
But at that time when Para came, I was very young, Bryn. I was very young. But I saw that project. What I remember is we used to hide in this house right there, right by my older Edward, and did our work study programs. We do our Karl Marx and did our political science. But no, I was never like direct involved, but we were on the street, we were on the road, we went home to home. In fact, by the time we got in there, this community of Savanpai, we had a number of cadres there in Cottage. My biggest supporters, the Daniels, Clinton and Francois and Casimir and Edward and Cuthbert, you know, we were from the left. We were from the Para movement. We were from the Alliance movement. Because don't forget, Cecil, had it not been for the split in the votes in 1980, Para would have won that election. Power would have won that election, but because of the split, he lost. So we had a very big following. So our work was more advocacy work.
Now, also, Reggie, in terms of looking back, and some of the things that you were involved in at high school, did you sense that you were going to be involved in the future in politics?
Well, I was involved in politics. I was involved in politics because I was advocating and talking, but I didn't see it yet as being involved in electoral politics. It had not yet dawned on me. Although looking back, I see everything that I did was heading in that direction. But I didn't really see it at that very early age. But there were people who saw it. And you say, boy, you're a politician, boy, you'll be a politician, boy. But you like to talk, boy, you like to argue, you like to debate, boy, you're going to be a politician, Reggie, you're going to be a politician. But that was just the general talk within the community. Even when I went to work at Ross, which we'll get into, many of the people that saw me has been because I continued my same life. My life continued. I mean, you're getting older, you're getting more serious and more settled. But there were a number of people who saw my attributes, my love for people, the way I interacted with people, the way I meet people halfway, the way I help people out, especially the elderly. I was a favorite fan of the elderly within the constituency. And that is why the elderly people have remained some of my strongest supporters throughout my 30 years. I had a relationship with the elderly. I was nice with the elderly. They love to be looking out for me because I always joke with them, always made them feel comfortable. And I believe many of the people saw it, but I didn't see it. They kept mentioning it, but I didn't see it coming.
Peto Cobbett is watching from South Carolina. Renef Alexis is watching.
Yeah.
Ra Peters or Derek Ra Peters is watching. Augustina John Baptist is watching. Cecil Laron says good night, Reggie. Watching in Florida. And Decima Roy said power in words. Curtis Matthew said that he's watching. No, Reggie. You were through with high school. What was your next mission? What was
My
the
next
next
mission
route?
was to go to Guyana.
Kuru.
Where?
Guyana, Kuru.
Mon.
No,
That's in the jungles, man.
No, that's in a school.
it's a cooperative college.
College.
At that time, Rosie was pushing the cooperative republic principles. And at that time, I think we had already gotten a boat. Afi and them, and there was already a boat, and we were moving in the Guyana direction. We were following cooperative establishment, small businesses at the grassroots level, which was part of the political philosophy, how to get people engaged and how to get people occupied. And Rosie had sent a couple batches, maybe 2 or 3 batches before me. Afi Walter, I'm not sure whether he was on my batch. But then when the time came for another batch, I chose to go to Guyana. It was Ofe Vincent and Shirley James from Cooley-Bistri, Myrna Louis from Cooley-Bistri, Eric Gordon, Rosetta from Portsmouth, myself, and about 6 to 8 of us. We went to the cooperative college, Kuru. But my plan was from Kuru, to go to the University of Guyana to do economics. But during that time while we were there, then you had the coup, the uprising and the coup against the Freedom Party, I think. And that is where some of the guys made their way to. So that was disrupted, and then the case was on and so on. So that disrupted the whole plan. But I believe that is where my surgeon into electoral politics, I believe that is where it really began to take root. And that was somewhere in the 1980s, 1981, 1982.
And Reggie, that is strange, in reference to your experience to Kuru, because I also remembered that I was scouted and was given the opportunity to go to Kuru myself.
Okay.
But, like these church people, and they were of the view that you're going to, because these people are very politically conscious, if you remember those days, Reggie. Yeah. That they think that at the time it was President Burnham, Forbes Burnham, and they felt that you cannot go to Cuba. They will not send you to Cuba, and they try to send you to Guyana. Where to them that Guyana, Forbes Burnham, and Cuba Fidel Castro had
Socialist.
almost the same socialist policies,
Right.
and said that you're an Adventist and you're going to be eating meat and you're going to be eating swine, and it was a rough period.
But for me, it was different, Cecil, because
Yes.
by that time it was everybody knew that I had an interest in the left politics. I mean, it was public knowledge. My parents knew, and that brought a lot of conflict between my dad and myself, because my dad was a diehard Freedom Party man. He was an Allen Carbon man. In fact, my dad was probably one of the last, well, he was the last person to see Allen Carbon alive, because he was on that fateful fishing trip. My father was with Allen Carbon. And all this stem up from the former President Charles Savarin and the CSA and the issues they had with the Patrick John regime. And my father was a public officer at the time, a principal at the time, and he was a serious CSA, you know, and we had a lot of conflicts, and that is a story by itself. But my going to Guyana was, I mean, I didn't have to ask, I didn't have to seek no permission. I was on my way. My mother, who already bought, my mother had bought into my politics. She knew that is what I wanted. She knew that is what I was. She supported me from day one. My father didn't support me. In fact, my father campaigned against me in the communities. The same thing that Mike and Rosie's father did, my father did to me. He went out in the shop and said, look, Reginald is my son, and I'm not voting for the guy. The guy's a damn communist. and why would you guys vote for him? And I think he went on the platform. RBD must have done his thing, walking through the villages, giving pamphlets. My father was actually on the platform campaign against him, but thank God he died with a red shirt on when he we fixed that. We fixed that. But it was rough days. So I went to Kuru, and I think that Rosie at the time had seen the bright sparks and looking at the conscious people and building his team around him. Interestingly though, 2 days after I left for Guyana, Para Rivia came to my mom's home and says, I'm looking for Reggie. We're ready for him to go to the Soviet Union to study international relations. But my mother said, but Reggie is not here. She said, what do you mean, where is Reggie? Well, Reggie went to Guyana. And I think Para was very, very disappointed because he had secured a scholarship for me to go to the Soviet Union. I think at the same time when Colin Geist went, he had secured a scholarship for me to go to the Soviet Union, because I was big fish at the time, even my youth, because I was perceived to be a future candidate for the left. And at that time, the left was building up its momentum. You had Pierre Charles, and you had Afi, and you had Ron Green, and you had Para himself, Titus Francis, Margaret Paul from Dodan, Whitfield Wallace from Woodford Hill, Terry James. You know, we were all then building the left. And although Titus contested the Portsmouth seat in 1980, but I was seen as the future of the left in the country, and in the north of the country in particular. But like I said, at that time there were some distinctions between the Rosie Douglas left and the Para left. One a little more midway, one a little more on the extreme end, and that caused a little bit of split in the leftist movement. But I was part, little boy, but I was part of that organization at that particular point in time. And so we went to Kuru, went to Guyana and finished my course of studies in cooperative management, and came back at the end of the period because Eugene Fidel Guyana was out of the question at this time because of the issues with the coup and the way the country was going and what was happening at the time. I had to be back, and I came back and just continued my political sojourn.
So your return from Guyana, you're now in Dominica. As you said, continue your political life.
Yeah, I came down, still advocating. At that time, though, my family, that cottage was freedom. Cottage was Allen. The entire constituency was a Freedom Party constituency.
From 1980?
Yeah. And so my family and them were diehard freedomites, and they saw me as a spoiler, as interfering in the status quo. You know what I mean? Oh, who is this guy who come and talk about leftists and alliance and this communists? You know, that was the Eugenia Charles of blessed memory. That was her line. We were communists. You know, and the cottage people were afraid of communists. And Allen Carbon being from Capuchin and Clifton, we had some support in Clifton. Cottage was freedom. The whole cottage, whole cottage was freedom. And I'm from Cottage, my mom is from Cottage, and I didn't get the support of my family then. Thank God today, all of them supported me in the last 2 or 3 elections. Then Tukari was Labour, because that's where Culon Dubois was from. That's where he had his base. So Tukari was basically Labour. Savanpai was Alliance, and then they moved to Freedom. And Lakou was always split. Tatan, well, we had the boys that they get to youth and them there and so on would go with me wherever I go, they would follow. And so that's what it was. So I came back in that nest of freedom, and my father there not easy enough at all. I came back in that nest of freedom and found it going very, very, very tough. In fact, at that time, they had established the Chandichok Cooperative, and when I came back, there was an opening for president or chairman or something in the co-op manager. Man, there's an opening for manager. But here I am with my certificate in co-op management. You thought I'd be an automatic pick. I applied for the job. I did the interview, and I'm getting ready to go to work in the cooperative until somebody sent the message: do not employ this guy. This guy is a communist. We don't want this guy in any position.
Sent the message to whom?
Well, to the cooperative people, to the board, and to the, because all of them, everybody is freedom, my brother. Everybody is freedom, but it's where the message came from, which I don't think I will tell you tonight, but I know where the message came from because the person who told me was on the board. And the person said, boy, Reggie, boy, let me tell you, we can't give you that job, because our instructions are you should not be employed at the cooperative.
Did it come from the big house in Roseau?
So Cecil now.
Did it come from the big house in Roseau?
Maybe he doesn't know.
It came from high up. It came from high up. So then I said that 1 year unemployed from Guyana, continue my politics and so on. By this time, I'd established a lovely network in Cottage. We had our youth. I was president of the youth movement. We had a cooperative. And Tukari, we had our tourism development that was taking place. We had built our sheds, we had built our thing and so on. So I was engaged otherwise. But there was no money in there. But community service, organizing my village feast and so on, until I wanted to work. So I went to Mike Douglas. I wrote several applications to Ross University. Well, nobody don't know anybody that answers. I went to Mike, and I said, Mike, I've been back here for a year. You guys send me to Guyana. I'm of the unemployed. I need a job. I said, well, come with me. Let's go to Ross. Went to Ross and so on. Mike in front, I behind. And Mike met Baba Butler, who was the local man on the thing. And Mike said, well, I have this young man. First, he just came from Guyana, and he's looking for a job. What you have? Butler don't even look at me twice. He look up, he look down. And Butler, so the man coming for a job, and that's how he's dressed. So Butler tell him, nothing. So Butler said, tell him and go and get some clothes and come back. I had my jeans and my T-shirt there, boss, because I myself is revolutionary, and so on. Anyway, I went back, and the following week I went back with Mike again. And Mike said, well, that's a young man. I brought to you last week looking for the job and so on. You told me come back this week. What's the situation? He said, well, we just constructed a couple labs there. So we'll put him in one of the labs there. I'll pay him $500 a month. It was in 1981, boss. I said, okay. I was happy to get the job. I went home, I got some clothes, and I started working. And that's how I got into Ross University. I started in the labs.
Doing?
Several labs. Well, my major one was in the gross anatomy lab. That's the one where we dealt with the cadavers, or how people call them, with the dead people. I was a technician there, preparing, assisting in the preparation of exams. But my big job was at the end of the semester, I had to dispose and prepare these cadavers and box them and get them ready for shipment back to the US, make sure they're labeled properly. While I was there, I started learning a couple of things and so on until we started our own embalming, because sometimes these bodies were not properly embalmed from source. So we got the embalming machine, and I started doing some embalming, and then we bought an autoclave and we would burn the bodies. And I started managing the autoclave and so on, and and just basically working at the lab and working with the professors, helping to invigilate exams and helping to pin exams and that sort of thing. And then I work in the physiology lab. We had a physiology lab, not much biochemistry because I couldn't deal with that. So I was in physio and I was in gross anatomy. I spent a lot of time in Grissom, 20 years at Ross University. But interestingly, Cecil, while at Ross University, I started developing a business because I saw an opportunity for transportation. So I bought this little 9-seater Mitsubishi van, 6721, and I started carrying students during the lunch break because students want to go to Portsmouth to do their banking and to do their shopping and to go to the post office and so on. So I started doing that. And then I thought that was good business. So I went to the Portsmouth Credit Union and I bought another bus, a white Mitsubishi 8561. And then I started carrying students, maybe 5-6 trips a day, $1, moving up and down, back and forth, up and down, until it started nice and well. And then I bought 2 other vehicles. I got contracts now to carry students. When the student population started growing, I had a contract to carry students from Bell Hall because there were some students living at house in Bell Hall. And I had about 2 or 3 contracts, so I had about 5 or 6 vehicles. I had 3 buses, I had 2 pickups, and I started a very lucrative business, very, very good business, until fellas start to. I was the first person to begin this thing until other people start to come into. In fact, when I left Ross and when I left Ross and after we won the election in 20,000, the guys were driving the vehicles. I just gave them the vehicles. I said, look, guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to pick up a position in the government. You guys can keep the vehicles. Nissan bus registration 235 and 8561. I had 2 drivers. I told them keep the bus. I also had a good airport thing going. I used to carry students to the airport. Wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning because students, they don't want to hear about flight leaving at 7. They want to go home. They've been on this wretched island there for a semester. They want to go home. And they will sleep at the airport. Come and pick me up at 2 o'clock. And you say, what, 2 o'clock airport open? They say, no, don't care, we'll sleep outside. But it's airport we're going. And so I started doing that. And maybe for 3 or 4 days I would not see my children because I started at 2 o'clock in the morning all day, taking students up and then students coming back. 10 o'clock, I go home, 10, wake up 2 o'clock next morning. By the time I get home, everybody fast asleep. So 3 or 4 days, I'll be sleeping in the same house with my children. I wouldn't see them. I was on the hustle carrying these heavy suitcases up the stairs, down the stairs, because when students come, they come with everything, tuna, canned food, because as far as they consider, they're not sure how long the food supply in Dominica will last, you know. And so it's a very good business. I worked very hard, my brother. I worked very hard, had a good business going. I made some money there too, much more than my salary was paying me. And I did some investments, and that was it at Ross University. The good thing about it is working at Ross University allowed me to continue to be a part rep. In 1995, when I won my first election and I was in the opposition, I still worked at Ross. I'm going back and forth, taking my days off to go to the parliament, back and forth. I could still campaign, and so there was no restriction, per se, on me doing my political work. And then when we went in 2000, I had to leave and pick up my position with the government. So that was the end of my 20 years with Ross University.
The first time you ran for the Labour Party, or you ran general election, was it in the year 1990?
I ran in 1990 against Alan Carbon. He beat me bad. He cut my tail, maybe 2 or 3 to 1. You know,
wow.
Yeah, he beat me bad. Boss, that was humiliating. I was laughed at. Fellas take drum and tin and drum and taboo. When I went to Capuchin, there was a team there, and go to Carnival in Capuchin. When I went to Clifton, a team there, Carnival. You know, passed through Cottage on the lazy bench. Trouble, my brother.
Wow.
You know, trouble for me because, you know, I was badly defeated by Alan Carbon.
Right, you ran for the left there?
No, I ran for Labour.
Okay.
In 85, I supported Renwick Jean-Pierre. I supported Jean-Pierre in 85 when Jean-Pierre ran for Labour.
Okay, in the Portsmouth area?
In the Cottage area.
Okay.
Jean-Pierre ran in Cottage.
Okay.
I ran in Cottage. I was his campaign manager. I was on the platform. I got more blows than Jean-Pierre himself because he saw me wanting to offset the status quo. I mean, how dare you want to run against Alan Carbon? You don't know nobody cannot beat Alan Carbon? You stupid? So I took my defeat and I continued my political work.
My goodness.
I continued my political work, and things happened in the Freedom Party in the Cottage constituency, and that gave me a better opportunity. That was when Alan Carbon of blessed memory decided that he was not going to run because he was under pressure. Because remember, Eugenia Charles loved Alan Carbon to death. He was her favorite minister, and even talks about Alan being the leader of the Freedom Party. The Brian Allens and them could not stomach that. And so they frustrated Alan Carbon to the extent that he decided that he's not going to contest. That is when he really saw the animosity that this petty bourgeois had for him as a local grassroots man from cottage. How dare you, all the lawyers, and how dare you, Junior Charles, want to say that you will replace her. So they made it very uncomfortable for him until he decided, and then put him in a certain state of depression.
Right.
And he decided that he was not going to run. And that was when they decided that Clifford Wallace would run. My very good friend. Good night, Mr. Wallace, if you're listening.
Oh, yeah, the great Clifford Wallace.
But Reggie,
yes.
I don't think that you did very badly in the 1990 election.
No, he beat me 2-1.
No, in 1990, he had 646 votes, and you received 450.
Okay, but it was considered, well, yeah, because we had done a lot of work. Me and
Yes.
my team and I, we had done a lot of work. But in the scheme of things at the time, it was considered to be a bad beating.
Okay, yes, in those days.
In those days,
Once you lose by over 100 votes,
That's right.
you'd be considered as getting a volley.
But you didn't lose your deposit.
No, man.
No,
Never.
didn't.
It was a bad beating, and they amplified it. And Cecil, now I come to think about it, maybe Alan Carbon then saw the writing on the walls. Maybe then he realized that for how he used to win elections before, and to allow me to come and get that I thought it was 350 something, but I wasn't sure.
Yes.
He I think he began, and then they put a lot of pressure on him, so he decided he was going to retire then from politics. And in fact, he had already named, his replacement was already named, and that's Clifford Wallace. And Clifford Wallace had already begun his campaign. He had been to Penville. He had kept meetings in all the hamlets in the constituency. In the constituency that he was going to be the next candidate for the Freedom Party.
Yeah.
But there were some wise guys in the constituency who felt that he couldn't beat me. And so they went and they told Junior Charles, you're making a mistake. You're throwing the seat away. You're going to give that to Clifford. Clifford will lose. So let us go back to Alan Carbon.
And then Alan Carbon ran, and he lost.
They got Alan Carbon to come back. You understand?
What year did he lose?
Well, that they said in 1995.
1995. Right, he lost.
Alan Carbon came back, so they treated Clifford Wallace with disrespect, because here it is, you have the man he already held meetings in Cabochon, Clifton, Lakou, and so on. He had kept meetings in Penville, promoting himself as the next Freedom Party candidate. And you had a bunch of fellas who went and told Reginald that Mr. can't win the seat. So Clifford Wallace, don't make no of them, he just came on our side. And he brought what he had with him when he was coming.
And you only won by 56 votes.
That's right.
And
What was the score?
Well, Reggie got 610. Reggie got 610, and Alan Carbon got 556.
Oh, it was close.
And Charles Worth Mills ran that
right.
year,
for UWP.
and got for UWP and got some 57 votes.
That's right. That's right.
You have the records well covered, man.
And well, the rest of Alan Carbon is history. And Clifford Wallace remained with Labour for the next 2 or 3 elections. He remained with us. He became a Labourite, and he remained with us until the end.
Wow.
So now, Reggie, you became, after Ross University, you became the parliamentary representative for the Cottage constituency.
Well, I was in 1995, but in
1995?
in 2000, I retired from Ross in 2000 and became a member of the government.
Right. Now, I'm saying that in 1995, you became the parliamentary representative.
That's right.
And you, as you said earlier on, you had a very serious history from way back.
Yes.
From the very first time you spoke with Rosie Douglas.
That's right.
But prior to talking to Rosie Douglas, you were troublesome.
Working.
You started to do your work.
Yeah, I was working.
Right. No, I want to find out from you, Reggie, getting into mainstream politics at that period in 1995. You had this socialist background or communist background, according to some people. What made you feel that you would have gotten over Alan Carbon, who was a bright spark for the Freedom Party?
Well, I think it was determination and the relationships I had created from the time I was a kid. You understand? and I had a very strong party organization, loyal, and that is why I will never forget, okay, the support that I got from this crew, in Cottage in particular. Cottage was a hot spot for the Freedom Party. Everybody in Cottage was Freedom, but there was just one family in Cottage who stood with Labour, and we received our humiliation and our criticism, but they stayed with me, okay? And I was walking through the constituency. I went from village to village, doing the work, helping people, using my own personal resources because I was in the opposition then. And of course, I had Rosie Douglas, who was well loved in the communities. So I just knew, and based on the results of the 1990 election, because Labour wasn't always doing too badly. Remember, I told you, Cecil, that it was the split in the Labour votes. When you add Samuel Carrot votes, and there was a Democratic Labour Party fellow vote, Labour Party got the majority of the votes. That Allen lost the election, in 1990. Allen lost the elections, but because of the split in the Labour Party votes, he emerged winner with a minority. So if in 1990 you could feel that the Freedom Party was no longer as solid as it was in the Cottage constituency, what we had to do now was to unite. We had to unite the Labour forces, including the Alliance people.
But Reggie,
yes.
Looking back at some of the results in 1995, you would have done very well in Lakou.
I did well in Lakou.
Right, which was a Freedom Party stronghold at the time.
Yes, but there were a lot of young people there, and the Alliance was also very strong.
Was it that time that the Freedom Party gerrymandered the boundary and put Lakou into Cottage, because Cottage was once upon a time?
I think it was before that. I think it was before.
All right. No, Reggie. And you spoke about Cottage.
Yes.
I see that in the Cottage government school that you'd have gotten some 97 votes over Allen Carbon getting 60.
But Tukari voted in Cottage, I think.
And Tukari in the Tukari chapel, you won 37 to Allen Carbon's 44.
Yes.
But in the Cottage Community Center, that's where you get a lot of blows.
Yes.
They got 142, Allen got 142, and you got 57.
That's right.
But you were able to, and that's one of the two areas that the Freedom Party would have won at that time in the constituency. I try to wonder, Reggie, how a young guy like you, with a guy who is a minister of government, strong as he is, all right, respected by the Freedom Party, respected by the bourgeoisies of Roseau, that you were able to win by some 56 votes. Yes, it is true that they spoke about Mr. Wallace. Yes, it is true that Mr. Wallace brought some people over, but you was able to...
But I was involved. I was involved in community activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the key. I was involved at a very early age. I got to know a number of people. I got to help a number of people. I built bus stops, in opposition. The Servant Pipe bus shelter, right there around the corner, I built that. The Cottage bus shelter, I built it. I think I did some work in Clifton. So I was involved, working, self-help, mobilizing the troops, mobilizing the groups. I showed leadership at that time. In Servant Pie, the guys were already Alliance and they moved to Freedom. But they were more left-oriented. And so it was easy. The election before, I got 11 votes. The other election, I got 125, I think, something like that, in Servant Pie. And plus Lakou always biting you, and so on. But I think it's because of the work that I had done. I had committed myself to doing that work. I was not distracted. I worked at Ross. I was no public servant. I worked at Ross. I had my time to do my work, and I had a very strong team. I had a united team behind me.
So someone said determination, charm, and being able to articulate clearly help Reggie to win.
They're correct, because I always a freaky fella. My behavior on the political platform today is similar. It has always been like that. That's my personality. Because you see, Cecil, my energy and my energy comes from my audience. My energy comes from my audience. And if my audience not responding, then I have a problem. So my first task, or my task throughout, is to get my audience on board.
You know what, Reggie? Let's in a while. Let's take a call.
Okay.
And I know the calls have been coming in, but let me take the first call for tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to all you gentlemen. A pleasure listening to you guys. But tell Mr. Austrie, Honorable Austrie, retired Austrie, if you remember when he was in his campaign fever, he was with Bowers. Bowers. Best guy in Bowers, so that Bowers was working hard for him.
Reggie, I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah. But was from Tukari. Yeah, he was part of, you see, Cecil, there was a big split. Well, Cottage, you can see there is a Cottage and Tukari. Tukari was Labour, Cottage was Freedom. Bowers is the partner there from Tukari. It's right across his place there. So, yes, he was one of the guys. He was one of the guys that were part of my dynamic team. You know, Bowers, Francois, Clinton, Edward Dinard, Casimir Morvan, Cuthbert Daniel, you know, and that generation, they were determined. They could face the barrage of the Freedom Party. They were not scared to enter in the Freedom Party camp. You understand? Because they were convinced and they had the conviction. They had the conviction that Labour at that time then was the best thing for the country then. You understand? So there's a lot of support. Plus, of course, like I said, Mr. Wallace gave you what he had. Whatever he had, he came across with it. And that would have been from the Freedom Party base.
And if you go back a bit to the 1985 situation with you, Reggie, in the Cottage constituents, Cottage area, that in the government school, which is the Savant Pie area, the Freedom Party received 278 votes, and you received 60.
In
1985.
In 85 or 90?
In 1990.
In 1990.
Yes, 1990.
Yes. Because remember I told you that Savant Pie, we had a lot of cadres from the left in Savant Pie.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Clements and the Damians and a lot of people in Savant Pie and were supporting Labour, and at that time were supporting Labour and supporting the Alliance and supporting me at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I worked in Cecil. It's a lot of hard work. Politics is hard work. But because I already had a natural inclination to the politics, because it was natural in me, I wouldn't want to say that, but I was a naturally motivated, I wouldn't say born, because fellas might say you're boaster, a naturally motivated politician. I believe it was my calling, and it still is my calling, because I'd done nothing else except work at Ross for 20 years, and half of those 20 years was politics anyway. You know, so I had this natural appeal. And this is what people call charm. There was a natural appeal. Okay, I could always win people across. I was always very charming.
So let me ask you, Reggie, you would have gone to other parts of Dominica during your period of 1995, 2000, to get people across to your party, to your political party.
Yeah.
How were you accepted?
Boss, I get on the platform, I start to make people laugh. I start to make people happy. I start to draw the crowds. I start to pull the crowds. And people started asking, is Reggie coming to this one or is he coming to the next one? I remember when I went to Cochrane. I was paid to go to Cochrane by a particular person. Because I said, I'm not going Cochrane. And the person said, Reggie, you must come Cochrane. I give you $300. You must come Cochrane. So, and the person paid me to go to Cochrane to campaign because they say we need you in Cochrane.
Someone wants to speak to you. Someone wants to speak to you. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
I'm sorry about that, caller. You'll have to call us back.
Right, one of the things,
Yes.
though, Cecil, in the whole...
Reggie, when you want to take a break to take some water break, you
yeah.
can tell us.
I just taking care of my voice.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, so we have to watch. Cecil, one of the things that I see from all the discussion in terms of his work at Ross University and the fact that he's able to motivate people is the question of leadership, you know. You have to be able to lead people. And it's not only a question of, you know, you're just going. People have to see in you a natural leader. And that is what I think the politics is all about. How you can motivate people and how you can lead people, and the way the people have confidence in what you're saying to them, whether you'll deliver.
Someone says, "Good, God bless you, Comrade Reggie. Admire your bravery. God bless you and continue to improve your health in the trying times. Thanks for the history."
Thank you.
Let's go back to the history quickly. Sorry about that,
Let's go
caller.
to caller.
Yeah, sorry about that. Quite a number of Wilbert Willis is on, and Glenda Shillingford is also. Mickey Morrow is also on. Let's go to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
Hey, good evening, Brain. Good night, Mr. Cecil, Ronnie. Austrie, good night to you, brother.
Good night, Ronnie.
Good evening.
Mr. Austrie, I just want to say good night to you, and I'm glad to hear your voice.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I just trying to remember you, very young. In the whole movement with Rosie in Marigot, especially, Rosie had a strong base in Marigot with the people like Richard Charles. I think they had a cooperative at Coffee, and they had a cooperative at West.
That's
I
right.
think the Candlelight. But otherwise, I know you personally, and something I admire about your style of politics. When I came to you for some, materials for my roads, for farm, you never hesitate. I remember coming to you once. I was walking for months to get some tariffs for my farm road, and then I was in Banana, and you just tell me you started and wrong to the guy in public work. But otherwise, I know you personally, and you have a thing about you. All the members of the Labour Party, I always seem more connected to you and guy from Kitty Savan, Roy, the England guy from Kitty Savan, the young one that there now.
Yes.
Just trying to remember his name. Defoe.
Julian
There's
Defoe.
something about all the more humanity people to deal with people on the ground more than the office. And that is one of the things I think the Prime Minister needs to do. You see, like what you have to fall in the early form more cooperative. I think that's what we need now, because I find this little island is going to divide it, like you said earlier on, and if you're reconstructing a country with all these big projects and the nation is divided, you're going to end up like Rwanda and the African states. So I think more unity is supposed to be building among the youth especially, because I find the youth is going out of control. You see a lot of rivalry. Things you never used to happen in certain villages in Dominica, you see it happening now. But I deal around you, and you seems to be a very calm person. You just have a personality, a real show personality, and I like that about you, man. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, Ronnie. Well, Ronnie is my partner from Marigot. I'm in Marigot, and I used to go by Ronnie. We strike a good note. I used to go into Marigot, go by Ronnie, and certain things we talk about a lot. But he's right. I mean, I say, look, man. I mean, I got along because I'm a people's person, my brother. You can tell me what you want. Yeah, I rough, When you see you pass by my rough side. Because you've seen me, Cecil. You've attended several meetings. You've seen how the crowd responds to those meetings. You see my interaction with the crowds, and right across the country. That's why I think that I can go in any country and I still get the respect and the love and the admiration. Because I treat people very well. I remember in ministry, I'll never forget that day, This young lady came to see me. She wanted some help, and she came to see me. And Cecil, she got to the door outside of the office, and she went back. She came a second time. She got to the door. Until my secretary said, "Well, Mr. Should have that girl. That's twice she come in there, and she going back. Look, she there again. Look, she there again this morning." To see you on a Wednesday. So I open the door and I tell her, "Come inside." And Cecil, the girl was trembling. That girl was scared. The girl was trembling, Cecil, afraid, because she hear about Mr. Austrie, and she knows he's a rough man. And she come, with her belly, And I said, "Well, sit down. And we started talking. And by the time we finished, the girl was all smile. She said, "So you sure it's you that Mr. Austrie?" I said, "Yes, it's me. Why?" He said, "But for what I hear about Mr. Austrie, not a little afraid. I was afraid to go. I come twice already." I said, "I know you come twice. I come twice and see you, Mr. Austrie. And he saw you nice, Mr. Austrie. Mr. Austrie, if I know that, I'll come along there." And we became friends. We started talking, and so on. She came for some help. And so many people, you can hear me, but to know me You have to be around me and to be with me. And she's not the only one. Many people have told me, but, Mr. Austrie, but you're a different person. I say, no, I'm the same person. It's just that I have different jobs to do. When I do one particular job, I put on one personality. When I come to do another job, I put on another personality. So that is who I am.
I want you to tell us a little bit about your road with Rosie Douglas, your tracks with Rosie Douglas, the influence that Rosie Douglas had over you.
Well, first of all, Cecil, we met that day on his bed. And since that time, I've never looked back. Okay, I always communicate with him, and Rosie always like to talk. Rosie like company. You've been close with Rosie, and Rosie always thought that there was a role for me to play in his politics, and Rosie always had me lined up for the Cottage constituency, and that's why Rosie sent me to Guyana to come back to lead the charge in the Cottage constituency. But Rosie himself was always up here, there, and everywhere. But I had the maturity at the time to understand Rosie. You understand? Understand what Rosie is. So you go by Rosie, Cecil, you've been to Rosie, and a whole hour and a half you cannot see Rosie. Yeah, even if you're there, Rosie doing everything else. Because Rosie like company. He like people around him. But I've always respected him. And when we were in Parliament, he was here in 95. Was he inside in 95?
Yes, he was.
Remember when we were in 95, there were just few of us. Okay? And I carried a lot of the debate.
Go ahead.
I carried a lot of the debate in the Parliament with my same style. The same style. I've never changed my style. I've never tried to be what I am not. I speak the language I know the people can understand. I know my audience. You have to know the people you're talking to. You have to know what level, and while you're trying to uplift them, but they have to understand you. And to me, I had the opportunity with Rosie Douglas to be myself. You understand? Rosie didn't come as no super university intellectual and try to impose that and try to turn you into some super intellectual. Rosie accepted what you are. He recognized your potential, and he treated you with that kind of respect. And Rosie could always call on me, because I'm a loyal soul. I doesn't shift loyalty. If I'm loyal to you, I'm loyal to you. And it's like Roosevelt Skerritt. My loyalty is with Roosevelt Skerritt. For several and a number of reasons and a number of years. I believe in leadership. I'm a socialist. I believe in maximum and absolute leadership. That might be good or that might be bad. And I believe the leader has to be given the latitude to do his work and to lead. You understand? And I always believe that the leader, I talk to them. I talk to them. I give them my point of view. But at the end of the day, we have to close ranks on matters. And when we take a decision, I live with that decision. And that was Rosie. Rosie wasn't always right. But I respected him as the leader. That is what we learn. That leadership in our system, in our political vibes, leadership is absolute. Do you understand? And that is what I admire about Roosevelt Skerritt. You have to give your leader an opportunity to make decisions, to work with decisions, to take decisions. That is what you elect him as the leader for, to take decisions on behalf of the whole. And yes, we can have our differences. Yes, we can have our own personal views. But in this politics, there is no room for personal views. The views have to be collective. It has to be our views as articulated by the leader of the party. So me and Rosie, we had a great time. I never end up in no argument with Rosie, because I was always a leadership person. I respected leadership, I admired leadership, and I work with leadership.
When in 1990, the passing of Rosie's brother, Mike, Rosie was not yet in the framework of the Labour Party, which means he wasn't in the leadership of the Dominican Labour Party. But people like yourself would have worked to ensure that he became the leader of the Dominican Labour Party. How did that work? How did you get that to be done?
I mean, it was easy. It was easy because I had already known Rosie as leader of the Democratic.
Yes, the Democratic.
The Democratic Labour Party.
Right.
And I was already in tune with Rosie's thinking and Rosie's philosophy, which was my thinking and my philosophy. I'd already understand the struggles that Rosie went through in Canada for the liberation of black people all over the world. And I already knew what Rosie was doing in Dominica to help to lift the state of the masses. Rosie was a true socialist. And by that time, I had made the wrongs, and I myself is, in fact, a socialist. You understand? And so I would have advocated both geographically, where we were, and politically. And I believe Rosie was more genuine. Rosie was for real. You understand? Rosie doesn't want to be leader of the party because it was a prestigious position to be in, or because there was any additional benefit that would accrue from he being leader of the party. Rosie was real. Rosie was real about people. Rosie was really about helping people in terms of health from Lakou, in terms of education, in terms of sports. You understand?
Culture.
In terms of culture and sports. And that was my own calling. That is what I feel my entrance into politics was meant to be. And so me and Rosie had a lot in common as far as our philosophy is concerned. And so it was very easy for me to support Rosie and to be with Rosie and to work with Rosie. And we were able to get the constituency. You know, my people would follow me, and we believed that Rosie was the best thing. And he had already established a lot of relationships in the cottage constituency. You understand? Because when Rosie did this thing, Rosie was from Wesley, Paybush, go back to Collio. You understand? Rosie was already well known for the works that he had done in the northern part of the country and other parts of the country. So I had no difficulty really and Rosie was more the unifying factor. Para was a little more hardline. You know, Para was hardline. Rosie was more into unifying the forces, unifying the party. Because you know Rosie had a lot of difficulty getting to be part of the Dominican Labour Party. He had to work his way through it.
As a matter of fact, we both know that Rosie Douglas did quite a lot of the sponsoring of the candidates in 1985.
That's right.
And may his soul rest in peace. This guy from La Plaine, Mr. Joseph, did not want the assistance that Rosie was going to give him because within the Labour Party, because he felt that he was too communist to accept his.
So Rosie had a hard time in the Dominican Labour Party, but he was able, with those constituencies, Paybush, Cottage, and so on, he was able to work his way through. And now the fruits of Rosie are being manifested. That is why we now have a united party. That was through the work of Rosie Douglas that he instilled in us. And that is why we continue to unite, to remain a united force. That is why he was even able to bring elements of the Freedom Party, who were his biggest critics. And he was able to unite elements of the United Workers' Party, of Freedom Party, that today you still have a large number of the Labour Party base is still from the Freedom Party, from the remnants of the, well, not even the remnants, from the body of the Freedom Party. And that was what Rosie was able to do with his charm, with his honesty, with his frankness, with his fair play. Rosie was a very honest person. And he was able to unite Labour that today we can be here for 25 years with no hint of any split or any division in our party. Yes, we have various views. And that is accepted within the Dominican Labour Party. You can have your views. You can express them in the right forum. But we have always remained as a united party because Rosie taught us to be united and Rosie molded us and solidified us as a political party.
But we saw Rosie Douglas in 1985 under the Unified Democratic Labour Party.
In fact, they didn't allow him to run on the Labour Party.
No, he didn't know. So he called his party the Unified Democratic Labour Party.
Unified or United?
United, sorry.
United
Labour Party.
Democratic Labour Party.
Because the party refused to allow him to run on the same
The party did not want him. That's why I was saying that the same period that you find a number of candidates, I think the Bazis, the Josephs, a number of the central and the eastern candidates did not want him to. But people like yourself, understanding him in the northeast of Dominica, was able to marry him within the party. And then 5 years later, his brother passed and became the leader of the Labour Party.
That's right.
How did that happen? I mean, help the listeners out there who do not know that. I mean,
because
how
politics
that
is
happened?
because of his consistency and his constant working. Because of the work that he did, he got people to buy into his philosophy. He had to go around the country, and this is the Rosie Douglas. This is the Rosie Douglas they're talking about. This is what I stand for, and he demonstrated it in his actions. The way he hugged the children, the way he sat with the peasantry, the way he communicated with his seniors, the way he was able to get medical care and medical attention. The way he was able to get people to school. People begin to say, "But that's not the Jumbie they're saying. They're not." And when you come to look at it, it was all wrong. I mean, fellas were afraid to go to Cuba. Or your parents were afraid to say to Cuba because Fidel's supposed to be a Jumbie a black man with two big horns and a tail and a whip, just beating people in the streets of Cuba. That is the impression
and
that they gave us.
And you're only going to eat eggs and swine
and rice. And when you hear the
rice,
bell ring,
you have to run.
There's no church in Cuba.
Yes.
You cannot go to church. Cuba had the biggest church in Latin America. Cuba had the biggest Jesus sign put up.
In Havana.
When you stand in Malekong there, you look on the other side, you see the big statue
of Jesus.
Of Jesus.
Yes.
But that is not. We were brainwashed. It was other people, other people corrupting us within the Caribbean because they saw the liberation efforts that were taking place within the Caribbean was a threat to them because Cuba was right on their doorstep, 90 miles from their border. And they saw and they didn't want the Caribbean to rally behind Cuba because they saw the Caribbean basin as their base, as their territory. And they were able to find people within our society who was prepared to go along with them and to make Cuba the devil and to make Rosie the devil. And that was not just in Dominica. It happened throughout the Caribbean region that most of the left, Walter Rodney got killed, assassinated. Most in Grenada, see what happened in Grenada.
Maurice Bishop.
You understand? In St. Lucia.
Odlum.
With the Harlem brothers. Mm-hmm. So throughout the Caribbean, when the left appeared to be emerging, Team Hector. When the Caribbean was beginning to take a stance, some people felt threatened, and the Americans were able to use them to frustrate the wishes of the Caribbean people who were calling for liberation at the time, who were calling for a better standard of living, who were calling for education. You understand? And Rosie was caught up in that, and Dominic was caught up in that. In fact, let us be honest. The Freedom Party at the time, was the one peddling advice for the United States. I don't want to offend anybody. That is history. But you tell me, let's go back in the history. I back in the history. That is what happened, where we had a number of repressive regimes proper by the United States.
Madam.
You understand? Go right across and you'll find them, Cecil. And their role,
Milton K2.
And their role was to suppress the left.
Tiaga.
Because they saw us coming into any position of prominence would leave an opening for Cuba and Russia and everything else to come in. And that still continues today. They still see us as threats to the status quo. And that is why Roosevelt Skerrit had to be very firm. And that is why the opposition in Dominica seem to want to play us against the U.S. They still call our party communists. Imagine in this day and age, you have black people having understood what took place within the region. Still have these white people trying to suppress us and to keep us down. You understand? And that is what Rosie stood for. And people began, and at that time there was a lot of political education. Because education was always the forefront of the left. Remember, Adams told you that our little gatherings as the Alliance, we used to have meetings in secret places. Many times, the Patrick John government had to tag us and flush us out. The police was constantly on our case, saying that we're trying to overthrow the government because we were communists. But we never gave up. We started talking to the people and educating the people that today almost every Dominican is now a socialist. You understand? And that was what Rosie stood for. But Rosie never compromised that position. Never compromised it. And people learned to trust him.
And then in 2000, yes, his brother Mike would have had you in 1990 to run the election. In 1995, Rosie had you. As you said, he trained you to ensure that you would have run the constituency.
That's right.
You won for the first time in 1995.
That's right.
In 2000, he again trusted you and ran. What in 2000 was different from 1995 in terms of the candidates that Rosie would have gotten compared to 1990?
I think, first of all, you have to be fearless. To be a politician, you have to be fearless. You have to go into places where many people don't want to go. In your speeches, in your utterances, you have to convince people that you're honest and you're trustworthy. You cannot be changing, you cannot be fluttering all over the place. You have to be firm. You have to be charismatic. You have to win the attention of people. You have to be able to win people. And of course, I'd establish a base. I had already established the base since 1990, as you pointed out. That base remained in 1995. So Labour already had a base, and all we did was to build on the base that was already there. Work. The people had to be convinced that you were what they wanted, that you would look out for their own best interest. And you can only do that because of the work that you had done in the past.
Well, one of the things that I learned within the political spheres, and many political scientists has written about it, in terms of your connection with the masses, and your honesty, as you pointed out, in terms of education. For instance, you have to educate the masses because education is one of the key cornerstones of getting people to understand the direction you're taking. Another area where I find is very critical in terms of housing. Housing is very critical to the masses, especially when people have been living in Bucham and they have not owned their own home. In terms of Medicare, in terms of the fact that people will get better attention in terms of the facilities available to them and to be able to access them. Roads, very important to the people as well in terms of the network. And agriculture is another very potent area which I find is very critical in terms of, keeping your politics alive and relevant. And one of the things that I find that you, Reggie, has been able to do with the other people within the socialist framework and the dynamism, which you talk about, the dynamic thing, which when I hear dynamic, I always think that's socialist. How do you see that word dynamic as influencing the way people think?
Because it's not only to talk dynamic, but you have to practice it and you have to show it. And you see, black people are a very colorful people. Black people, we like our carnival, we like our story. We have a lot of energy. And even in our darkest days, you probably wouldn't know that. And you will see it around carnival time. You will see the people who will be out there jumping up in the street and people with their costumes and so on. That is the kind of people, and we don't like to be suppressed. We don't like to be held down. We want our space. We like to be free. We may not have money in our pocket, but we love our freedom and we like to express our freedom. And so once you come with a dynamic persona or a dynamic program, something that represents change for the better, that is why the United Workers' Party, they got into government based on some errors and some circumstances at the time, but they couldn't maintain it. because they did not understand the society that they were seeking to represent. They thought it was just a buying and selling. They thought they could run the country like a business. Look your money, give me my change. They didn't realize the intricacies of making people and their family comfortable. They didn't understand what the Dominican people wanted at the time. And they came there to replace the status quo. And from day one, they started making errors. Personal errors where they think that was about them. But it was not about them, it was about the country, and that is why they could only survive 4.5 years, and that is why it's going to be difficult for them to win any other election, because we have shown the Dominican people what representation is all about, what good governance is all about. Because of our policy positions that we have taken on a number of issues that impact the lives of the Dominican people, on education, on housing, on jobs, on infrastructure development. That is why when in 2005, after the austerity measures of 2000, we went to the people and we told the people, look, that is what we inherited. And we're going to try to fix it, but things may get worse before it get better. We told them that to their face. And the honesty in which we relayed that message, they liked us, they trust us. Because we're not bullying them no googly that when I come, I will be in an airport, and when I come, there'll be milk and money. I'm floating, and when we come, you'll see these long bananas thing from Fokole to Mams in Massac. We'll have trucks and trucks and trucks of bananas, and we'll revive the banana industry. These were untruths. The period and the time would not call for that. The world was rapidly changing on us. And so we work with the people, telling them that change will come. Change will come, but we have to adjust and readjust to be in line with the global changes. And the people of Dominica, they trust us. When we tell them we're going to do something, they believe us, because we have always been truthful with them from day one, Cecil. I mean, you guys have all the experience, so you guys can tell me what I say they're making sense.
I just wanted to find out, Reggie, that in looking back in 1995, or it's 1995? 1995, yes, when Rosie ran the election, out of his, I think, 16, 17 candidates, because the Labour Party in 1995 did not run 21 constituencies. 12 of them were socialists.
That's right.
Do you think that by virtue of Rosie Douglas' belief, that's why he targeted 12 persons who belong to or who has the ideology of socialism?
I think so. Rosie was able to move us from our extremists, from our extreme point, and bring us in the middle, and let us understand that you have to embrace everybody. You have to be all embracing. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that is what happened, and that is why, even when we won in 2000, a number of the candidates who won were from the left.
Yes. So, for instance, in 1995, I can tell people who belong to the left. We had Griffin Saint-Hilaire, who ran the Wesley constituency. There was also Kelly Grano, who ran the Salibia constituency. There was also in Roseau Central, you had Jonathan Prevost. And,
you had Pierre Charles in the south.
You had Pierre Charles from Grand Bay. You had Rosie from Portsmouth. You had Matthew Walter himself who ran the Paybush constituency. You had Terry James, who ran the Marigot constituency. You had Jarvis Hilaire himself, who ran the Lapland constituency. All of these people, Reginald Austrie, all of these people came from, and Margaret Daru was part of the socialist movement.
That's right. So we were able to soften our position and to get the Dominican public to buy into our philosophy and to buy into what we stood for. We were still who we were. Mm-hmm. But that hard line was not going to take us to where we wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And Rosie was able to convince us that we have to be accommodative. We have to take a softer line. We have to get the Labour Party that was right, and members of the Freedom Party. We have to get them to come to understand that this is about country, and that we are not going to declare war against the United States. We have to work with the US. So it's through education and action. You understand? We were able to allay the fears of the masses of the people. And we were progressive people. We were hard politicians. We worked hard to make it happen.
And as you rightly said, you all would have worked in softening the kind of candidates that you would want to attract. So for instance, yes, you continued some of the socialist people. You had Pierre Charles again from Granby. You had Lloyd Pascal from La Plaine. Well, Norris Prevost, I should say Julian Prevost was that of the United Workers' Party. He was also a left. But Rayburn Blackman was the one who ran, was not left. Terry James again ran Marigot. John Toussey himself was part of the socialist movement. Matthew Walters was also part of the socialist movement. So, yet still, you, as you said, you soften and just giving the message differently to a number of people.
We were progressive and we were bright. We realized people were not ready.
So let me ask you, Reggie, what did you now make of the people who came from the Freedom Party side to be part of your candidacy in 2000? So, for instance, the Roosevelt Skerritt, the Vince Henderson, they came from the early days of the Freedom Party. What did you make of these people into your party for the very first time in 2000?
It's part of the same process that they followed in 1995, where they realized that there it is, that you have a bunch of progressive guys. Well, at that time, the Freedom Party had done its 15, 20 years. So they were already on a decline. And they realized that there it is, you have this group you have Rosie Douglas and this group of progressive guys who didn't do too badly in 1995 and who stand a very good chance because of the policies that we were articulating, who stood a very good chance of forming the government in 2000. And also, the total hatred, well, not hatred, but the disgust that they experienced with the United Workers' Party. The arrogance, the lack of empathy, the greed, the fact that the United Workers' Party declared that they were going after the Freedom Party. And remember the comments made by Eugenia Charles, of blessed memory, that the United Workers' Party had sought to humiliate Eugenia Charles and the Freedom Party, even with a bugging allegation. And Freedomites were very, very disgusted, including Johnson Boston. Were very disgusted with the line being taken and the line of attack being taken by the United Workers' Party, because the United Workers' Party had a bigger problem with the Freedom Party than with the Dominican Labour Party. Because they said they saw the Freedom Party as the enemies, the arch enemies.
Let me ask you, Reggie, when the United Workers' Party was formed in 1988, what was your role within the Labour Party in encouraging or discouraging Labour rights to be associated with the United Workers' Party?
Well, we saw you saw what they did, what they did with Mike, because remember, we thought that they were going to come with us, and let's build a coalition of forces against the Freedom Party. And then we had proposed that we would play games and would socialize and would start to mix. But they immediately felt that the current was in their favor and they could do it alone. They felt that the current was in their favor and they could do it alone. They didn't need anybody to help them to win the elections. Because they're painting this pretty picture that they were businessmen and they know how to run this and they know how to make money and they will do this, that, and the other. So that is when we realized, boss, we have to paddle our own canoe in those circumstances. And they were making all these wild promises to the farmers and to the students and to the people, which they knew was untrue and difficult. And when they could not deliver, and they started delivering to themselves based on the contracts they gave themselves, based on their stance on the international airport, people got really fed up and distrust and mistrust for them. You understand? So we didn't have to do much to see through them very early in the game. You understand? Plus, the Freedom Party never liked them, and that is when I believe, even at that stage, some of the Freedom Party began, you know, seeing how we have to keep those guys out. And I believe that is where they began to feel that there can be some kind of alliance and some kind of accommodation with the Dominican Freedom Party.
At that time, Reggie, in 2000, you would have been a senior of the Dominican Labour Party. You would have run 2 elections before, lost one, and would have won one. What was your role alongside with Rosie Douglas to have the right candidates for the 2000 elections?
Well, first of all, I had to secure the cottage constituency. And of course, in these things, you always have the advisors, you understand, that at a different level. But my role was to, once the candidate was identified, to move in there and to seek to give whatever support based on my limited experience then, to give whatever support to the candidate to assist them in winning. And that is where my strength was. My strength was always on the political platform. I wasn't so much into the administration of the party. My strength was on the ground and on the political platform, the public appearance and the public pronouncements, which is what carried me through my entire political life, my entire political career, mixing it, of course, with some knowledge and some learning. But generally, my role was to go out there and to beat men up politically. My role was to go out there and go after the United Workers' Party. My role was to go there and to promote those candidates wherever I was called upon to do it. And that had continued to be my role throughout my political career, to go out there, to make the points, whether it was St. Joseph to go and fight Monel, whether it was anywhere, was to go out there and pick up my microphone and to go and do what I can do best, to speak, to energize my crowd, to energize my support, and to educate in the meantime, but more to give them the energy and to give them the hope that candidate that was selected for you is. I didn't have to know the candidate. I was a liberator. I was a labor man at heart. I didn't have to see the candidate to support him. I didn't have to know the candidate. Once the party presented that person as the candidate, my role was not to question that decision. My role was to go and make it happen. If you think that's a weak candidate, go and spend more time with them and make them strong. And that is what I did in 2000. That's what I did in 2005. That's what I did in 2010. That's what I did in 2015, in 2018. And in every election, my role was to go and create winners from those candidates.
The thing about it, you see, you're very well schooled. Because when you read the aspects of political science, you understand the political culture. And the political culture is the thing you must understand. Your role. What role do you play? And in terms of what you're saying there, in terms of the motivation, is that you don't have to know the candidate, but you want to ensure that the candidate gets the best out of you and the party supporting the candidate in fulfilling its role. So very important, Cecil, is that many of us in politics, we don't understand the political culture. You have to understand the nature of what you're dealing with so that you can best play a role in the management or whoever you have to deal with.
Because politics is not about you, Cecil. It's about them. It's about the people. You don't come there to promote yourself. You come there to make people, of course you say who you are and what you can do and so on. But that is not the ultimate. The ultimate goal is to get people to rally with you and to convince people that you're the best thing for them.
Let's take a telephone call quickly. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening to Rivanik and the world. Good evening to Mr. Joseph and Mr. Brennan. Good evening to the Honorable Minister, Senior Minister.
Good evening,
now,
Father.
Senior Minister now, fireman touching this. Now, you know a lot of things about rules and that's why you are so much a great man. But really and truly,
I find out how come you give up so young and you have a sort of fellows that almost your age and they still fighting. You there with me? Now, I have a question to ask there a little bit. I listen to on news, recently in America, no, I listen to on news in America, where the president of America son had an issue, right? And I think he free up his son. So I can find out a man like you as a senior original politician. You think it that happen in River Nickel? You think that bring a good signal or bring a problem in the place? You know what I'm saying? And my next point I have to make you now. When the international airport and the workers was going to build, I'd like to hear something about that, please. I'm listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Yes, Reggie.
Well, I'm not sure whether we have a situation in Dominica that is comparable to Joe Biden pardoning his son. I don't think we have that case. But I believe that any action the government has to take, when they do the calculation, if it means once it has to do with unifying the country, if it's a selfish political move, then you're going to have a problem. But if it means unifying the country, bringing us together as one people under God and so on, but like I say, I cannot tell you because we do have a situation like that in this country. We pardon criminals every November. You know, there's a mercy committee. There's a mercy committee that meets. There's a committee. I was chairman of that committee for a while. I released quite a few prisoners. You understand? So there's a mercy committee made up of several people in society that meet. They look at the case, these people. You look at the recommendations coming from the prison, and you decide we can let Mr. go. We can let that one go. We can let that one go. So that is something that we do occasionally in Dominica to release prisoners. Okay, so it would be nothing new, except on that particular matter. You know, it's different. On the issue of me, Cecil, listen, I've been around for plenty years. 28 in the parliament, and of course my life before I got into politics. And you have to know when is it time to exit. Politics is about timing. See what happened. As soon as I retired in 2023, my voice started giving me issues. Now, I always had little problems with my voice for years now, but it used to go away after three days. I was back to normal. This one decided to stay in a little longer. Okay? Now, the political dynamic is changing, and you have to understand that too. When I became Pal Rep, I had a lot of seniors, but that was a whole generation. This new generation cannot remember when I won the election in 1995. They were not born yet. They were not born in 1995. In 2000, they were 5 years old. In 2005, they were 10 years old. So they would not have known my political, unless what they hear from their parents. But the dynamic is changing so rapidly that even this comfort we used to have, that because my mother was a labor, then, you know, like they say, I born in Catholic, I'll die in Catholic. That dynamic is sort of changing. And you, as a conscious politician, must know when to let go. Too many times, politicians don't want to let go. They want to die in the thing. But the kind of politician I am, and I didn't become a politician by accident. I was always a politician. And so my intuition and the spirit that allowed me to be said to me, look, my brother, you've made your contribution. The political dynamics changing. You have to trim the tree for it to bear fruit. There comes a time when you have to prune your plants in your yard, Cecil, if you know anything about agriculture. And it get new shoots. So the pruning time for me had arrived. Nobody didn't put me out. Scary didn't put me out. Nobody didn't put me out. I felt I had seen my successor. I believe I had left the constituency in a state where you couldn't lose it. In fact, it was in such a state that you couldn't even find somebody to run against Labour in the cottage constituency. So I felt that I had done my work. I had done what I had to do. And it was time to leave the Labour Party in the hands of the future generation. I would have won the election, but I might have won with a reduced majority. I might have made it more difficult the next time around for the new man to pick up. He would have inherited a constituency in decline. Because a lot of the young people who would have been of voting age didn't know, and that is what we have to, we have a lot of work to do to get these youngsters to understand where we came from and where we are right now. But I just felt that I had made my contribution. I had sacrificed a lot of my youth. I had done I was satisfied that I had done what I had to do, and it was time to pass on to the baton to the new pal rep, who is doing a fantastic job. And the time will come when he himself will have to pass. They will not put him out of government. He cannot go out. Nobody can vote him out. You understand? Nobody can beat him at the polls. But he will have to take a decision to groom somebody, look around him, identify a replacement, and he himself will have to pass on the baton for the next generation. So there's continuity.
When the Labour Party came into a coalition, Rosie Douglas was then the leader of the Dominican Labour Party. I would like to be told, and the listeners, what was your position that you received from the government or from the coalition government as a minister?
I was made a minister with special responsibility for special projects in the Rosie Douglas administration. And to me, my politics was never about position. Even today, my politics is never about position. My politics is about being in a situation where I can help people. That has always been my life. And I was happy to serve in whatever position. I never talk about ministry. I was never in the ministry business. I was always ready to follow the leader wherever the leader placed me. Whatever the leader thought was good for him and for me, he would put me there. And so it was very easy for him to accept. People, some of my constituents, they say, but Reggie, but so long you're there. How come you don't get a ministry? They don't give you a ministry. To me, that was not a priority for me at the time. We had a young government. We met a challenging situation. We had to accommodate the Freedom Party because of the support that they gave, because of the contribution that they made to us being in government. And I was prepared to work with the government and to continue to make my contribution. So the issue of ministry was never an issue for me. It was never an issue for me because my politics was never based on what is in it for me. My politics was based on sound leadership that understands where it wants to take the country, and I was prepared to work and to support the cabinet and the government at the time in whatever capacity that they would have placed me.
Your daughters, Ashma and Stella Blue? Stalina. I don't see the I'm not seeing the I. I only see LLNA.
Yeah.
And they both said that they're tuning, and Stalina said that we're tuning, Daddy. Super proud of you. Wow.
That's my kids, my brother. That's my children. They suffered the most. They received the most neglect with me being a politician. Okay? Because I was never home. I was always on the road. They were young. I had a young family at the time. And it was my wife who really raised the children.
Reggie, now, given...
But they've been total support. They continue to support me. Even in my retirement. We are one tight-knit family. We have our disagreements. They're very strong-willed children. Very, very tight-knit. But we share a lot of love across the board. And I want to wish them well wherever they are. There's one more, Brittany. I want to wish them well. They've been doing very well for themselves. And that's what it is.
No, Reggie. You were given a special portfolio to perform in the ministry of the Prime Minister. Within that period, the Prime Minister passed on. And how did you feel at that time?
With the ministry or with the Prime Minister?
No, with the Prime Minister the Prime Minister passed on.
Well, it was a shock for everybody. It was shocking for everybody, and I knew Rosie had plans. Rosie was out there, and he died with his boots on out there, looking for opportunities. He had some commitments because we had realized that depending on this tax and these revenues from tax collection, was not going to move the country from where it was to where it ought to be. And so we had to make that extraordinary effort to pick up, which is the same thing Roosevelt's Carrot is doing right now. It's the exact same thing Roosevelt's Carrot is doing. Because to depend on tax revenues, my brother, to pay public officers, to run the country, and to still build the airport and the marina and the geothermal development, you would saddle the country with debt. And maybe you might not even be able to raise the loans on the financial markets to get it done. And even if you were able to raise the money, you would have put the population under tremendous pressure. And so we had to create an avenue and an opportunity to raise those funds outside of tax revenues. And in fact, what we have done over the last couple budget cycles is to reduce the tax pressure, Cecil, on the Dominican people. And I heard some people saying, oh, they will deal with the cost of living. Hadn't we done what we did over the years, over the period, to reduce the tax burdens on the people of Dominica, people will be walking the streets of Rose with fire catching in their head. The way we put more money into the hands of the people, give them more consuming capacity. The way we gave people who didn't qualify for Social Security benefits, you understanding me? And to give them a $300 for them to meet their day-to-day runnings in whatever way it can. If we had these young people on the street still dependent on their parents because they couldn't make $1,000 or $800, whatever dollars it is. If we could not reduce the tax that public officers were paying at the time, reduce the tax threshold and the tax burdens, and put more money in the hands of people, they would have a problem. Because hadn't we gone the route we had gone with the CBI and to raise the money for those projects, it would have to come from the same people. And sometimes we forget that. We forget that the measures and the policy positions taken by the government over the years have placed more money in the hands of the people that they can survive inflation and the continuous rise in prices. Maybe it's not sufficient, but there is so much that the economy can give. You understand? There is so much that the economy can give. Why is it that we're giving barriers for Christmas? We're giving barriers for Christmas because we recognize if we don't do these barriers, a number of Dominicans will not be able to have a good Christmas. Keeping more money in their pocket so they can spend and buy their hams and their turkeys. And even then it's not sufficient that the government itself must intervene to assist them in having a good and a Merry Christmas. And this is what the people of Dominica have to begin to understand. Hadn't we moved to assist students, parents in sending their children to school overseas? How many students who are now university graduates would have been able to become graduates on the resources of their parents or going to the banks for loans? Cecil, hadn't we taken on the housing revolution? How many of our people would be able to lift themselves out of their poor living conditions? How many of them, they didn't even have land? How were the people of Fokole, who were squatters for decades? Several governments saw them as squatters. They had no ownership document. They had no title to their properties. Living in cardboard houses and material they got from the labas. Codfish box, my brother. On dirt floors. In one-bedroom homes with 9 children. No water. No toilet. Young ladies and young men have to be bathing outside, wrap around a piece of plastic. That is what we met in the country, Cecil. And people want to criticize our housing revolution. When we gave these people an opportunity to own the land that they had squatted on, for decades they made children, their children were making children in those facilities. Cecil, cannot go to the bank to improve their homes. They have no titles to the property. And this government had to find the resources. We could not get that from the treasury. Scary had to go to Venezuela, pick up a 30 million, and the Chinese gave us 3 million. And he put into the housing revolution. We were able to serve, and we did not give them the land at $1 square foot. We were able to let the public service, let the government system survey the land for them. Today, Fokole is a total transformation. 2-story buildings, 3-story buildings. You want to jealous these people and envy these people because you believe you is some hot shot, and the poor man that live next to you in a little shack with his family, no running water, with a toilet, you vex because Skerrit gave him a 2-story building, because Skerrit gave him the land and gave him a title that he can go to the bank and his children working and they can take a loan and they can build their house. Cecil, you hearing me? That is what this government has done over the last 25 years we've been in government. And look at all the areas. Look at all the areas of priority and focus for this government. How many children from Jubic and from Delaford and from Capuchin and from Penville and from Googlo in Castle Bruce, how many of these kids would have been able to access and the Kalinago territory? How many of them would be able to access loans at the banks and the financial institutions? They had no collateral. How were they going to go to school? And even with the support that they're getting from the government, they're still complaining, Cecil. They're still making noise. They're still giving the government mepwe because their school fees is being paid a little late. Can you imagine that, Cecil? These are people that have been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity by the progressive policies of the Dominican Labour Party. And your tuition, a little late, my brother. And you want to go on Facebook and blast the government. How many of us could not go to the college because we could not pay? We could not pay. We were owing over $1 million owing the college because students not paying the college. They can't pay transportation to go to college. They're sitting at home and have to settle for jobs that are way below their capacity because they have to go to work. They cannot go to college. And this Dominican Labour Party government for progressive policies has ensured that we have moved the college population from 200 to well, I don't want to speculate how many thousands.
It's over 2,000.
And a little glitch you make, you want to criticize the government? Cecil, these are some of the things that this government has been doing. This government has done. A continuation of the policies of Rosie Douglas, Fruity Roosevelt, Skerrit. It's the same Labour Party. But as time changes, you have to change your posturing because you have to move with the times. But your fundamental philosophy remains the same. Shelter for the homeless, food for the hungry, clothes for the naked, health for all. That is our fundamental policy, our fundamental philosophy of the Dominican Labour Party, and we have implemented policies to make it happen. The United Workers' Party does not have a philosophy. I've said that so many times. And if you don't have a philosophy, you cannot craft a policy because you have no philosophy.
Some people might say, Reggie, that we speak in politics.
But I'm a politician, my brother. I'm a politician. My life, you tell me to come and talk about my life. You know. So I talk about my life as a politician.
Yeah. I just wanted you to put it in proper perspective.
And what I have done as a politician to elevate the lives of the people of Dominica, what my team has done for this country. That is how I live my life. That is my life, Cecil. That is my life.
Boy, I telling you.
And it's not a life of, and it has not ended. It continues. That is my lifelong, is to serve. It's a life of service. I'm on a mission. And as long as God gives me the breath.
Just hold that thought, Reggie. Sorry about that. Just hold that thought. Someone's on the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yeah. Good evening, Cecil. Good evening, Honorable Austrie. Good evening, Brother
Brain.
That's my good body.
Yeah, good evening, my friend. Good evening.
Good evening. I call for some clarity and some clarification on the issue of I am very happy about people having homes. I think anything that happens, that's a blessing. But you extended the conversation to an idea of wealth building in terms of titles to own and be able to go to the bank and to. But that doesn't seem to be the general consensus of these houses that the government has been building. Am I missing something? I'm not saying that you might have a few examples of, but that is one of the banes of this whole situation that people are not contented with. That yes, they're giving houses to live, but they're not building equity. So I just need some clarification on that, brother.
No, but but Cecil, what if I give you if you live in a squalor condition, and I give you a title to your land on the premise that you'd use that and build your wealth, and it has happened in many communities. But you see, the housing revolution is not just based on that one aspect. There are about 9 components to the housing revolution, including the 4% loans we had at the Government Housing Loan Board and the 5% we had at the Aid Bank. Land settlement is just another component. We remember we gave people building material to build their homes. Remember, we actually sent people to build homes for people on their lands. In the Kalinago territory, we had a special program for the Kalinago territory. So you cannot just pull out one component of the housing program. And don't forget, Maria changed the dynamics. Maria and the one in Erica. We had to actually relocate and resettle the people. You may say it's not the government responsibility, but these are Dominicans, these are young people, these are families. And we created an opportunity so they could move from this danger area. So I'm not sure what is the question, because I know, Cecil, that a number of the people that we gave the titles, they have used it either to send their children to take loans, or either send their children to school, to improve on their housing, to build their homes. You understand? For medical purposes. So yes, you give them the land. Yes, some of them use it to build equity, but some of them use it for their daily challenges that they face on a daily basis. They can go to the credit union and pick up a 10 grand or 5 grand. Not necessarily build a $100,000 home, because there are other conditions for receiving it. But they could go to the credit union, pick up a 2 grand to go and do a surgery, pick up a 5 grand, send for their child overseas. You understand? So yes, some people have in fact created wealth. Your home is your wealth, my brother. You understand? The value goes up. The land, the ownership of the land itself is wealth. So to give you a title to your land, immediately your own personal value goes up. So I'm not sure if I maybe missed the question. I'm not sure if I missed the question.
Yeah. Right. Just to track back a bit and go into the housing aspect. What I like about the fact, Reggie, is that you mentioned about succession planning. You have to know when the time comes to move away from that aspect of it. So what you do, you train persons to succeed you. So you identify people within your community or within your political space, which is very good, because a lot of politicians remain beyond their tenure. They do not know when to leave. And I like what you said about that. In terms of the housing revolution, I'm very pleased with the fact that many people have been elevated in terms of the homes that they have. Because you'd recall that on the Lakou, we talk a lot about the boot sham.
That's right.
Where many of us lived in one-room homes. And
long houses.
Or long houses. And we had no toilets, flushing toilets. So the mere fact that you empower somebody by giving them a home valued probably at $300,000 and beyond, that in itself is moving them to a certain standard where they can use their land as collateral to be able to do more things. So the fact that the housing revolution has actually changed the dynamics, and not only that, the other big revolution that we fail to recognize is a pit toilet which we had before. And to have a flushing toilet, we're taking those things for granted. That you cannot take that for granted.
It gives you also the confidence, brain. It gives you the confidence. It gives you the right to be heard and to be seen, because I have my toilet, I have my house, I have my 2-bedroom. It gives you an opportunity to brag, for want of a better word. You know, whereas you will be hiding away because you feel so inferior. You understand? But I don't have a toilet, my children sleeping on the floor, house leaking, with little cardboard on the dirt floor and so on. It's dehumanizing, Cecil. It's dehumanizing. And to have all these young 15, 16-year-old children in the community, they have to go outside and you have to have a pail and you have to cross the road and you have to throw that in a plastic. It's dehumanizing, my brother. And some of these people, they were born in a situation where they would never have the opportunity to raise themselves, to raise their standards, to raise their level. You can imagine when these children go to school and they hear their friends talking about, boy, the toilet flushing, toilet not working, and they ask to take water. It had no water this morning. And you know, you just finished bathing in the basin and you had to empty your pail in the fallers behind the house. You can imagine that? I will tell you how my mother buy a new mattress and that mattress was so nice and sweet and you're going home to sleep on a piece of cardboard on the floor, on the dirt floor.
Oh, no, Reggie, I want you to tell us, in 2004, you know, preparing yourself to work with a second prime minister. How was it, working with Pierre Charles?
Me and Pierre Charles, we go back a long way. Me and Pierre Charles knew each other. In fact, Pierre Charles was in the alliance with us. Plus, Pierre Charles was a family friend because Pierre Charles' wife and my wife went to the same school, community high school. They lived at almost the same place down there in Loubier. In fact, we got married, I think, the same year or on the same date or the same year. There's something about when my wife got married, because she and Justin were very, 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 very close friends. So we had this family kind of relationship. And Pierre Charles had always made his contribution outside of politics and inside of politics. And Pierre Charles was able to manage a constituency and a community and a constituency that was very high profile constituency in terms of the liberation of themselves and the liberation of the people. So Pierre Charles had seen it, he had lived it, he had done it. Different personality, but I believe that it was the right thing to do at the time. That once Rosie passed, unfortunately, Pierre Charles would have been given the opportunity. He had the experience to run the country. Like I said, his personality was different. He wasn't like Rosie. They were two different kind of people. And like I tell you, I'm a man that is bent on leadership. I'm a socialist at heart. And I believe the leader of the party carries a certain weight that has to be respected and built on. And so me and Pierre Charles, I didn't have any difficulty going through the transition, having to work with Pierre Charles. Politically, personally, there was no difference between Rosie and me and Pierre Charles and myself.
But you became a minister of government.
Yeah, because Pierre Charles was elevated to prime minister, and so I became Minister of Communication Works. And that gave me an opportunity to work in a number, because at that time there was communication, works, housing, ports, water, telecommunications. And when I look back at my legacy, which I don't do very often because I had to do a job, I did my job and I'm out. But when you look at the telecoms liberalization, opening of the telecoms market, when you look at the extension of the Melville runway.
Before you go to the Melville runway, give us a little bit of that success story in terms of the liberalization of the telecommunications.
Well, I was Minister for Telecommunications I became Minister of Telecommunications in 24.
NT04?
Yes. And I was made, and Minister of Telecommunications came under that portfolio. At that time, we were trying to break the monopoly that Cable and Wireless had on telecommunications services within the region. They had a monopoly. Legally, they had a monopoly where they were the only provider. And you know that once you have a monopoly on anything, you have an opportunity to control the prices and to control the direction. So we were saddled with high cost of telecommunications. And the technology that was in the world at that time that was being developed, the company was not inclined to move as quickly as we wanted them in developing those technologies which we believe could bring down the prices. And so the OECS countries, they formed what we call ECTEL, the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications whatever, headquartered in St. Lucia, and the ministers of telecoms were really on the board. And we had to fight. It was a legal battle because the monopoly that Cable and Wireless had, they were legally entitled to it. And so you couldn't just tell them go, because they would have sued you, because they had a legal right. And so it took a lot of negotiation, sleepless nights. It was difficult. It was a difficult journey to open up the market. And it did cost us quite a hefty sum to do it. And to take over the telecoms market was not easy, because you were dealing with a company that had hundreds of years of experience in telecommunications. We in the region, we had a few people who worked in that sector, but our experience within the region was not easily or readily available. And so we had to pay consultants, we had to pay high-rising people. But once we got it under control, we saw not only a drop in telecommunication prices, but also the expansion of the sector. We saw small businesses, telecoms-oriented, developing. We saw new licenses being issued, which brought in a certain level of competition in terms of cost and in terms of technology. And it's still going on right now. So that was, then we see new telecoms infrastructure being developed. We see more people being employed. And like I said, we see new technologies, new advancements. We are on the cutting edge of new advancements in telecoms equipment all over. And that for me was a major breakthrough in the telecommunications sector in Dominica. We also had the port. Remember, it was under my watch that DASPA was created, to create one entity for better management, better supervision, and stuff like that. The water sector, I managed that for a long time, the minister for that. What else we had? We had a number of roads. We had the airport, like I mentioned. In my own constituency, we built about 3 or 4 brand new bridges, brand new from scratch, and renovated a couple.
You can talk about the construction of the Libla Highway, to include of that of the road underneath the Kinfield Cliff. You can talk about the Maho.
I was a minister at the time too.
Yes.
Yeah, I even forget those things, Cecil. I forget a lot of these things.
In Maho, Pierre Charles was the prime minister, but then you were the minister, the road that is connecting Maho.
See, the thing, Cecil, I didn't even keep track of this thing, because like I said, I was sent there on mission to serve. I was sent to serve, and I didn't expect any reward for the services that I rendered. It was my contribution to human development and human dignity and national pride and national dignity. So a lot of those things, I keep forgetting that I was...
Under your watch, you had the night landing.
We had night landing because we extended the runway. And all that was criticized. I mean, when I look at Lakou, from this crossroad there, we did that bridge. We surfaced that road. That road was right through swamp, right through Capuchin with concrete, maybe 1 or 2 small sections. The housing in Cotton Hill. The bridges. You remember the Humpback Bridge right there in Lakou, there by Otis there? Otis was also very instrumental too in the success of the Dominican Labour Party. Also a member of the Alliance in the Cottage constituency. Otis was very, very, very instrumental in that aspect. That Humpback Bridge, where vehicles, trailers used to stick in the bridge. Actually stick in the bridge, block traffic, you can't pass. We opened up that bridge. The bridge in Bell Hall, Tatan, we did that. What else we did again, Cecil? I cannot remember the amount of things we did, and I think we were part of the
roads. If you have to talk about roads, I mean, I have 2 brothers who are here, and they said that they're in a neighboring country in the Caribbean. When we make comparison of what we have in Dominica, I've also spoken to one guy, this guy, a radio announcer, Julian Rogers, who sat here on DBS Radio and said that Dominica has the best roads in the region.
We had a special program for village roads, which we did with concrete. You remember that?
Yes.
Every village you go to, you'll see a piece of concrete road.
Bob, what to include?
Built by
Castle
by this
Comfort,
government.
Bob.
I mean, because you see, I don't know, Cecil. I don't know what's wrong with us here in this country, my brother. I mean, what we did was beyond because governments could never raise the resources. That's the problem they had. They had the same ambitions, but they could not find the resources to make it happen. Well, at this time, they never had time for that anyway. That wasn't their forte. That was not where they were strong.
No, Reggie. So you worked together with Pierre Charles' help in the development of the country. Now, working with Roosevelt Skerrit. Tell us about.
Well, that is an experience by itself. I have never seen a man who is so calm, modest, and wise, and very, very visionary, and can lead his government with stability, with all his various factions that form the government. There has never been a point of quarrel in the government. Making noise outside. When Sabroch and them they're talking their foolishness outside, but in the government, there has never been one point of departure from the general position of the government. Secondly, this man was able to create and to develop a financial system for the CBI that afforded us and allowed us to remove the taxes. Remove taxes. We have never increased taxes in 15, 20 years. We have never gone to Parliament with a budget and they're saying that going up and that going up and this going up. Except alcohol and tobacco,
sugar.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Which
for health purposes.
Which are for health purposes. But the vision. I mean, when you look at Skerrit, the Honorable Prime Minister, and you see how he managed and maneuvered with the financial crisis that the United Workers' Party left us in, where we could not pay where they could not pay wages, when they took $140 million to say to build an airport, and more than 75% of that was spent paying wages and salaries. Why would you take 14% money to pay wages and salaries? Because you couldn't do better. When you saw where the Social Security contributions, workers' contributions deducted from the salaries were not paid. We could not pay our international institutions. We had to go to the IMF. Roosevelt Skerrit just came into government. Going to the IMF is never easy. And within the first period, the IMF was able to say, look, you guys are on a good footing. And Skerrit said, no, continue to monitor, to make sure that we continue to be disciplined and diligent in our financial affairs. When you look at what Roosevelt Skerrit has done after Hurricane Maria, when the country that by all international standards would have taken 20 years to be recognized, within 2 to 4 years, you could not recognize that was the country that was totally devastated by a hurricane. All infrastructure intact, housing, people. 30,000 of our homes were destroyed. 95% of our homes were destroyed. Cecil, 95% of our tourism plans destroyed. 90% of our infrastructure, ports, bridges, roads destroyed. And we were able to find the resources. Within 2 to 3 years, we were back on our feet.
Let me ask you, Reggie. Roosevelt Skerrit came in January of 2004 as Prime Minister. And in the 4th of April 2004, yourself and the Prime Minister left for China to change diplomatic relationship.
That's right.
From that of Taiwan to China. How was that negotiation in China?
Let me tell you something. I've never seen that before. 19 hours. And I remember when the Chinese told the Prime Minister that you have been sitting here for 19 hours. We have to travel. So let's close the deal. Skerrit said, no, I'll stay there and I'll wait because I'm not satisfied. It was tight negotiations. Tight negotiation. Because what we had with the Taiwanese was more money for budgetary support. They give you a 2 million here. Man, share that. They give you a 1 million here. They had an agricultural mission there. So I don't think that we had benefited to the extent that we should have benefited from our diplomatic relations with Taiwan. But with the negotiations with the Chinese, it was solid negotiations. See what we got from it, and everybody knows what we got. Everybody knows what we got. So, and I was happy to be part of this process. To see this little fella sit down in front of the seasoned diplomats. Seasoned diplomats. I mean, this Chinese premier is not a, in terms of international relations and international involvement, this guy is no baby. And little Roosevelt was able to sit with him, his advisors. And I think the admiration and the respect that they had for this little black fella from Dominica has made him a total friend. It's not even on a diplomatic level now that the Chinese are now our friends and our families because of the posture of Roosevelt Skerrit, the seriousness, the sincerity, the love that he portrayed for his people and his country, his honesty, that gained the admiration of the Chinese government. They admire him to the extent that they now see him as a dear friend. And Skerrit has been talking to the other leaders. See what happened in Venezuela. And that is where Skerrit has a strong point, to get world leaders to listen to him on a one-on-one. It's not meeting in a forum in a big meeting and everybody talk and we go home. No. I come in to meet you. Let's sit across the table and spend hours negotiating, advising, discussing. Whether it's Fidel, whether it's Chavez, whether it's Maduro, whether it's the Chinese Prime Minister, whether it's Tony Blair, whether it's Prince Charles. Skerrit is the most loved and admired man in the international community as a head of state today as we speak. And I feel privileged to have known Roosevelt Skerrit and to have been so closely associated with him and to see him from day one in action. We travel a lot together to Cuba and to Venezuela to those meetings. I've been there with him on all the Petro-Carib negotiations. And I've seen this man operate. And I've seen the attention and the silence that is given to Skerrit when he speaks. And I've seen him too in bilaterals with Chavez, with Fidel. Kept me 7 hours with Fidel one night, 8 hours with Fidel one night. He and Fidel sitting on a table talking. 8 hours, my brother. In the wee hours of the morning. I've been to the presidential palace with him where he had those discussions. And it was serious discussions. These are not men don't have time to play and make joke in those forums. And I watched Roosevelt and I said, you know what? There's only one in a century like Roosevelt Skerrit. And it's going to take us a long time before we find another Roosevelt Skerrit.
Now, Reggie, I know that also that you too was very much instrumental with Roosevelt Skerrit in creating ALBA.
That's right.
And many countries of the Caribbean did not understand what was ALBA and put Dominica under quite a lot of pressure, even requesting that we move from CARICOM. And months later, we have seen some of the same countries are now members of ALBA. What do you take of this? Seeing Roosevelt Skerrit working with Chavez
Boss, again,
to ensure that this kind of relationship, out of the relationship, but this kind of economic development happens between two countries.
like I said, Skerrit is a visionary. And Skerrit understood that the world economy was not as it was. That you can no longer depend on the West wholeheartedly for your support. In fact, the West started giving us a lot of technical support, but not financial support. And Skerrit realized that if we did not take the appropriate action, there would be a financial void in the economy. Because your agriculture was under pressure. You have a very rugged country, very rugged terrain. So you don't have all these white sand beaches and all these hotels that these other islands have. So we in Dominica were at a particular distance. Yes, we had our forest and our agouti and our manikou and our sand, but our parrot. We have that. People come to see that, but these are... Anyway, I'm not going to say that before they tell me that I say that, Dominica. These are ornaments. But we are at a serious disadvantage, geographical and physical disadvantage. Well, more physical than geographical. Physical disadvantage. We were well located geographically in the middle of the islands, but physically we are a difficult country. And the challenges that we face and we're now facing, we were going to have a hard time in surviving just going through the regular process, through what they call the status quo. And so Skerrit saw an opportunity where you could change the dynamics in Dominica. And it was necessary for us to sign on to ALBA at the time. What was interesting is that while Skerrit was immediately signing on to ALBA, there were many men, many prime ministers with much more experience than Skerrit, who were afraid, quote unquote, to sign on to ALBA. And they did not sign. They had to go back to their country and to talk to this person and to talk to that person. But you're a leader. You know the situation in your country. You understand? You have to be able to take a decision in the interest of your country. And when they saw what was happening, they joined on. But Skerrit was already way ahead of them, and that is why Skerrit remained and was able to benefit much more than many of those other countries, because when these countries needed support for their initiatives, they only got the support from Roosevelt Skerrit. And since then, Roosevelt Skerrit has gotten the entire Caribbean, except Trinidad, for obvious reasons, to sign on to the ALBA agreement with Venezuela. Because all of us, some a little better, have the same financial problems because of the changing situation in the international economy, the international financial markets, and what is happening there. And so I'm very, very, very proud of Skerrit that he's always very proactive. You see, Skerrit knows what the country wants. He knows based on his interaction, and many of these people, they don't know what's happening on the ground. They don't interact. You see Skerrit hugging up elderly, hugging up seniors. He listens to them, and he gets his inspiration from these people. He listens to them, he works with them, and he knows exactly what his country needs at whatever point in time. It's not guesswork. The international airport is not a guesswork. Skerrit knew 10 years ago that he had to build that airport, and what he had to do to get to the stage where he's now building the airport. He knew that. We spoke about that. We spoke about it privately, publicly, in the cabinet, outside of the cabinet, that Skerrit was always going to build the international airport. And many people doubted him that you cannot build no airport. Too many big governments have failed. And you that little boy they're going to talk about building airport. Skerrit is a visionary. He sees things way ahead. He sees things way ahead of many people. And most of the things that they criticized Skerrit on in the past, they now coming to realize that this man knew what he was talking about.
Now, Reggie, you have worked with Roosevelt Skerrit.
Yes.
in cabinet, outside of cabinet.
Yes.
When Roosevelt Scary took office, or when you all took office, Dominica only had 46 countries, or 46 countries with bilateral relationships. Now we have over 130. How have people like yourself worked with Roosevelt Scary to ensure that we reach that wide margin of diplomatic relationship with countries outside here?
First of all, you have to be fearless, because there are some countries that would have never engaged them in diplomatic relations. Previous governments had never seen them as potential allies. The other thing, you have to understand exactly what you want from your diplomatic relation. Most of the time, diplomatic relations are about a vote at the United Nations. Scary has taken diplomatic relations to a new level, another level, where he seeks scholarship. Every country we have established, there's a scholarship component. It also gives your country an opportunity to be known within a wider circle. We had this very tight circle within the Western zone and so on. France, Canada, England, America. It gives your country a profile, a larger profile, because you have more people knowing about this small island called Dominica, and they start sending their people down, and that speaks volumes. You also have to know what you want, because one of the things we're afraid to establish diplomatic relations with certain countries, because we believe other countries will be angry with us and they wouldn't give us the little stipend and what we're getting from them. They will blacklist us, and we wouldn't have a good relationship with them, and they'll be angry with us. If we go to Venezuela, the Americans wouldn't be happy. You have to know what you want. You have to be fearless, and you have to be independent. You have to exercise your independence. All these countries are exercising their independence. Why should we stifle ours because of what they think and how they feel, when they cannot give you what these other countries are prepared to give you? Your vote at the UN is a very important vote. And you cannot give away your vote for chicken feed. It cannot be. I mean, it's not dollar diplomacy. We're talking about reciprocity. And as to what value you put on your reciprocity, that's another matter. But it's we working together. When they come to you for your support at international organizations, it's not called dollar diplomacy. But when you go to them and tell them what you require for your support, it's dollar diplomacy. We have to be very careful. And Roosevelt Scary and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the government was very clear in establishing relations with as many countries around the world as is possible. One, for a profile. Two, for the assistance that required. And as a country that is threatened by hurricanes every year, we will need resources. We cannot move Dominica to another region. Dominica will remain where it is. And from time to time, we'll require the support of the international community when we get into trouble. And this is what Roosevelt Scary has established, that when we get into trouble, we have friends. We have people we can turn to. When we want to educate our people, we have friends. We want people that we want to turn to. When we need support, right now our CBI is under pressure. You need to go there and lobby friends to help you to see what they can do to assist you. And we have been able to use a number of lobbyists within those communities to speak on our behalf, to speak on small developing countries' behalf, like Dominica. We get them to speak to us. When Prince Charles come here, his presence here alone made a huge difference to how the world looks at us here in Dominica, and how they can support and assist us. When Roosevelt Martin Luther King Jr. here, the Workers' Party, they criticized him, they laughed at him. Right in the parliament, they laughed at him. But Rosie Douglas knew that there was a certain sector in the United States that we needed to be aligned with. And that alignment could come through our relationship and our association with this black movement. You hearing me? But these cheap politicians, they don't understand this. They understand nothing. They're not prepared for governance. They're not prepared to lead. They're not learning. They're not reading. They don't understand. All they're seeing is dollars and cents.
I'm going to ask you $1 million question.
Try. And if I can answer, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't.
In January of 2004, why did you say no to leadership and support Roosevelt Skerrit?
Because I didn't think personally I was ready. I didn't think I was ready. And I don't believe that the person or the spirit that got me into politics was not ready for me to lead. And I was very comfortable in doing what I'm doing. I was very, very comfortable. And I thought that responsibility, I didn't have the discipline. And I believe that the person who eventually became leader, I think they had the discipline. And I was right. I was right and I was correct. Not that I couldn't lead. You have your advisors, you have your people there to work with you. But I didn't think that was my calling at the time. I didn't think I was ready and I was prepared at the time to take up that role. I enjoy doing what I'm doing. And I thought that based on all the pronouncements that were made, I thought that Roosevelt Skerrit was caught. And I was right. I've been proven right. That's one decision I made that I have never regretted, and I'll never regret that decision because I have seen the benefit from that decision, not to me, but to the country. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I would be able to do it as well as Roosevelt Skerrit has done. I hope I don't disappoint anybody with that response, but that is my honest, open response to the question.
I think you're very honest.
That's my
some of us in any.
Also, you have to know your limitations,
right.
Cecil. And that's a problem we have in this country. Many of us don't know or to accept our limitation, and we get into things and we make boo-boo out of it, and we allow many people to suffer because of our arrogance and our ignorance. And I was not prepared to be arrogant. I'm not an arrogant person. I may be a bold person. You may not always like the way I come across, but I'm not arrogant at all. And I know my limitations. I know what I can manage, what I cannot manage. And I personally believe that my support to Skerrit, outside of being the leader, has been more beneficial to Dominica than me being leader of the Labour Party. And it's known, the opposition knows that, the Labour Party knows that, people know that although he was inexperienced, but he has grown. I saw in him somebody that would make time for the office of leader, that could change the lives of the people of this country for the better, that could put Dominica in a place where it belonged and where it deserved to be for many, many decades. And I have never regretted. I will never regret.
Let me ask you, one of the things in some commentaries, some of us, and I remember Rosie saying that, and when they came to Julian Giroud's house, I remember just sharing that with you, Reggie, and Julian Giroud told me, but you don't hear what Rosie said, huh? I said, what did he say? He said, but he see a young fella there in Vegas, we Mr. Just come in politics with. And Rosie saying that man will be the future leader of the Labour Party. But joke you making, man. And Reggie, your insight into what you've said there in terms of your role. All of us have a role to play. Some of us support our leader, and the leader has the vision, and we support the leader in achieving the vision. So being very honest, in terms of your capacity it's very, it's very, 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 very rare. Because, some people like to be leaders, but they cannot perform the task as effectively as another person. So in management, Cecil, leadership is not a thing that you just jump into, You must have what is known as the charisma, you must have the vision, and you must also have the human relation aspect of it. And I think your assessment and evaluation of the opposition at the time when the position became available was very insightful. I just made that comment.
Thanks. Cecil, I was not. No, I'm good. I enjoyed what I did. I feel I was successful as what I did. I have a great track record. The government and Roosevelt can recognize the contribution I made. That's why they awarded me. It wasn't a retirement package, because it didn't come with a check. So it wasn't a retirement package I got when I was awarded the highest honor. It was in recognition of the work that I had done for this country. And I'm very happy that I did. And I'm very happy that Dominica got a Roosevelt Skerrit. And I'm very happy that the people of Dominica continue to put their trust. And they have enough reasons to do so, because they have seen his works. They have tasted his works. They have benefited from his work. This is not something we will do. These are things that have been done and have been done well. Of course, he's human. He'll always make mistakes and make errors. He's human, like all of us. He who has no sins cast the first stone.
Let me ask you another question.
In these circumstances, he is the best thing that Dominica has ever seen in terms of leadership of country and the development path that our development started when when Labour Party won the election in 20, because there was no country, my brother, between 1995 and 2000. There was no country, there was no treasury, there was no country. Dominica had disappeared. The physical structures were there. But in terms of moving forward, the United Workers' Party left nothing, zero. Not $1 in the treasury. My brother. Debt. Poor hospital services. Poverty. Indigent poverty.
Let me ask you a question. Now that you have retired from, I would say, being in the ministry, and you retired, would you still appear on the political platform, or you have given it up? I know you like it, but would you still venture if another election is called tomorrow morning? Will you still be batting on the political?
Is what my father has in store for me. If my voice will be restored, if he restores my voice to where it was, then I will be on the platform as long as I can get to the platform, by whatever means. But like I tell you, I now have some challenge with my voice. We're trying to fix it. We've not done yet. It's getting better. It's much, much better. We're not done yet. Still working on it. But as long as my voice, because that's the only problem I have, my voice. And as long as my voice offers me the opportunity to be on a platform, I'm a politician. My life, that's my life. There's nothing else. And in or out of government, as long as I have the breath, as long as I'm healthy, as long as I can do it, yes, Brain, you will see me on the platform. And you will see the same me, except I might have to control my voice, control my voice. But you'll be seeing me on the platform.
Let me ask you, Reggie, what does the DAH, the Dominica Award of Honor, means to you? But before you answer, let's go to the telephone quickly. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
I just wanted to make a little and ask a question. I wanted to read you, this is Steinberg. I'm listening to the discussion with fascination. Here's a lighter question. You have a lighter side. When you campaigned, people look forward to hear you. Reggie's going to be on stage, and from the moment Reggie gets on stage, the trouble has begun. He's going to sing a song. He's going to say something about somebody. He's going to say something raucous. He's going to reveal something that we never heard before. Everybody wants that campaign style. How did you develop that? What did it achieve? And how effective do you think it was? That's my question to you, my friend. Be wonderful.
Great question, Stein. A very wonderful question. I love
Thank
that.
you, Stein. Well, I consider myself to be a cut between Mike and Rosie. Mike had a lot of humor. Rosie was very intellectual, but also with a lot of humor. And I saw how people gravitated towards this gentleman. I mean, even Freedom Party people will tell they don't like Mike as Mike, but once Mike going to speak, they want to hear what he have to say. And I realize that my better times on the platform was when I captured the audience, when I had the attention of the audience. And so I developed a style that was midway between Mike and Rosie. And I always responded to my audience. I cannot speak to a crowd if they're not excited. And so I had to find, a lot of it is natural, okay? A lot of it is natural. But I had to find creative ways to capture the attention and the imagination of my audience. Now, there are certain things Dominicans like. We are a storytelling people. Our culture is storytelling. We love to go by the river. We love to go by the bay. We love to go under the tree. We love to go to the market. We like to talk, to laugh, and to interact. We like storytelling. And I decided, why can't I bring those characteristics to the platform? Why can't I bring those characteristics onto the platform? And add a little humor. Sometimes we're too stiff as politicians. Sometimes we speak on the platform, people don't hear what you say, they don't listen to what you're saying. Because you have a crowd, 5,000 people, they come to hear their party. They come to hear their party's leader. They know what to expect. But like everything else, everybody have a different style. And people drift away. They go. And that's why, Cecil, you notice, I always speak just before the bus. Just watch me on the platform. I always speak towards the end of the meeting. Because people have to be there to hear the leader of the party. But they're scattered. They're all over the place. And so I have to draw the people up front to listen to the leader of the party. So I come there with my theatrics and my stuff and
singing.
And I sing and people look forward to it. And that's where I draw my energy from. My energy comes from the people.
And still sing now?
Oh, yes, not as well as I used to.
Goldie asked me to make you sing a song, and Goldie Williams asked me to ask you if you can sing a song for
No,
her
give me
tonight.
a couple. Let me work on the voice. No, but
You heard that, Goldie?
To understand, I'm Stein's question, really. I get my energy from the audience. But you have to know your audience. You have to know when you're up in Santa Roma, and you have to know when you're down in Lakou, and you have to know when you're over here and over there and over there. And you have to add a little humor to the thing we come there. It's not noise we're making. This is, so you have to change your tone and change your voice and so on. And I've been able to perfect that craft. My own style. Take it to the parliament, take it on the platform, take it to anywhere, and attract people and get people to come because they never leave disappointed, Cecil. My audience have never been disappointed. And sometimes I get on the platform without knowing how I'm going to do it. Sometimes I don't plan it. I come there, I sit there, I pay attention, I listen to what's going on, I look around me, and it just comes. It comes naturally. It comes naturally.
Someone just said, Mr. Austrie, I say thank you for your hard work and services to Dominica and the Dominican people. Blessings and more blessings to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Reggie, as we come into the end of the show, I need to find out from you the challenges that you'd have had. Because you spoke earlier on in reference to your family and how your wife had to be the ones really raising your children. Well, what kind of challenges that you would have had? If someone a young person is going to get into politics, what would you tell them are the greatest challenge, especially if they're married, what are the greatest challenges that they would have?
Boss, family. When you're a politician, 75% of yourself is sold to constituency and country. That becomes your family. If you want to be a successful politician, your extended family. And your immediate family has to understand that. They have to know that. So you have to put system, first of all, your wife, your girlfriend, your whatever, have to be in tune with what you're doing. You'll be spending a lot of hours away from home. You'll be hugging and kissing a lot of people, men and women. You'll be giving away a lot of your resources, your money. You'll have to help people along the way. You'll have a lot of people coming to your home. You'll have to share a lot of the bread you bring in home. You buy $5 to bring home. By the time you reach home, it's one bread you remain. You know, that was my kind of politics. That's why I survived in the politics. And so that is the biggest challenge a politician can have. If your family don't understand what you're doing, and if your family not in sync with it, there'll be a lot of family issues. And that can cause a breakup in your family, that can mash up your family. That's at the wife and children level. Your children have to understand, otherwise they'll feel jealous because the attention you're giving to other people, you're not giving it to them. When they ask you for a pair of shoes, you will tell them, boss, I cannot afford it, but you just give that person one credit a pair of shoes by that lady there and tell that lady, give that person a pair. And that's my personal experience. Give that child a pair of shoes to go to school while your children are asking you for stuff and you cannot deliver it. You will go and make representation for somebody else's child to get a scholarship to go somewhere. Your child will not go to scholarship. You will get the government to pay, support other people's children, because this is not about you. This is about the people. And you turn your children and your wife and your family into politicians, which they are not. And if they don't get to understand that, then you're going to have a major problem. It's going to handicap you. It's going to retard you. It's going to hold you behind. So there has to be an understanding. And thank God, my wife bought into my politics. And when I met my wife, she was freedom, she was a freedom party person, because all country was freedom. Everybody, everything country was freedom, except my circle, except my circle that I met as labor, and they remained labor. My wife was from a freedom home. And when I started making brick, me and my wife, I couldn't go in the yard. Because her parents were freedom. I couldn't go in the yard. I had to stay under by the copper house under the mango tree. Cottage people know what I'm talking about. I couldn't go in the yard, my brother. Because they saw me as somebody coming to disrupt the vibes. And then I was a communist at the time. You understand? And she had to stay under the tree. Sometimes they don't close on and so on, and we had to find a way, and so on. So it was not easy for her. It was not easy for her to be my wife or my girlfriend. It was rough, my brother, because she did not have the family endorsement. I did not have the family endorsement. I didn't have my father's endorsement. I had my mother's endorsement. And I've told people that is why I end up living in Tukari. Because my mother had a little piece of land, and because of the conflict between my father and I, my mother gave me that piece of land, and that's why I end up in Tukari, to keep the tension, put distance between my father. Thank God he came around in the end. My wife family came around in the end, and we're all one big happy family. But for her to accept me as I am, it was a blessing, another blessing. Because my politics, of course, she wasn't always happy, but she understood. She was always happy about me being out there and hugging all those girls and winning votes.
And a church lady at that.
And my wife, I think that is what kept her strong. So she's been through a lot throughout my political career. Sometimes she had to take me for my sake. That damn husband of yours, why you don't leave us alone? That man there just giving people problem. Should be confronted on the streets. But she also helped me a lot. She used to feed the elderly. That's my wife. Big, very big heart. Very big heart. Share what she have. We were alike. in a certain sense. So I think the biggest challenge is your family. Because the natural tendency is to gravitate towards your family and do things for your family. In fact, one person who wanted to replace me, he said I could never be, he told my wife, I could never be Reggie and my family like that. My family would have to be top of the line. That's bad politics, my brother. You're not a politician. Your family has to take second place. And they have to understand why. My children understood why. They went through their struggle, they went through their rough times. They're still going through some of it right now. But they understood what I was doing. They understood that was my life. They understood that that was my calling. And they respected it. And that is why in my retirement I need to try to make up. I can never make up for lost time. But I have to do what I have to. Although I'm still in politics. So they have to continue to live with it. But I have to try hard. I have to try hard to give them some satisfaction, some reward for the sacrifices they made while they traveled this journey with me. My wife is special, my brother.
Goldie Williams said, Mr. Austrie, we love and miss you on stage. God bless you all the time. Well spoken, sir. You are so good. We miss you.
Keep praying for me. Keep praying for the voice, and you will see me again. Because I love what I do. I like doing it. Although I'm a very shy person, Cecil, and a lot of people don't believe that when I tell them I'm a very shy person, you know. But once I get into my groove, then I'm not a big crowd person. I shy. I just cry fast. But when I get into my elements, you know, it takes a lot to stop me. So I wish, because the PM needs the help. We need the help. Because as you spend more time in the politics, you move 6 terms, 7 terms, people, even your own supporters, begin to take it for granted. And they don't do the work that is necessary. They take it for granted, well, you must win, you win already. And so we say, boy, I thought vote for Reggie, you know, but myself, boy, myself not voting that election.
Your daughter said, we good paps, never worry.
No, I know that for a fact. More blessings upon you guys, and you guys have been part of this journey with me. You guys have been part of my politics. I'll never forget that, and I'll continue to do my best to ensure that you guys, we can make up. We'll never get back to where we would have been had we not been in the politics. But we'll see what can happen.
Right. I must tell you, last night I listened to you on the Simeon show, and I found you to be so very dynamic in the way you approached the situation as it relates to politics. And you know what I'm talking about. And I find that the way you go systematically, I find, in terms of approaching what you had to approach to debunk some of the things that you were hearing from the other side. I think that aspect of it, as you pointed out, I find very much in Michael and Rosie. I find the way you're approaching it, it would be a sort of thing like Mike, and the kind of thing you'd come out with, I find, with Rosie. And you could create it your own style. So I think you're really right. I think you studied. I think you studied those guys, because I really think that these guys were really, really very tactful in the way they approach.
I agree with you, Brain. I like them both, and I could not be any one of them, but I try to mimic them and to create my own style. You don't read this in a book, you know. It has to come from inside of you. It's something that you generate from within, and then as the experience grows, you get better and better and better at it. And I like it. A lot of people, you know, oh, you really like to give me pui. I don't give me pui. I just say it as it is and add a little humor to it. And I don't lie. I don't lie on the platform. I don't tell lies. I always speak the truth. But maybe the way in which I say it, I might rub some people on the wrong side. I mean, take the Monel case. I didn't lie on Monel. And these people took me to UN All Women's Convention. I didn't say anything. But they took great offense. In fact, one guy met me by Carlton Phillip, and he said, "You bastard, you see what God do you for your voice? You cannot talk now, though you're talking like a cat." I tell him, don't worry. You should have heard it. There was one time you would not have heard it. But if you tell me it's something like a cat, then that's some improvement, and I coming back. I'm not done yet. I will be back. Yeah.
Cassandra Elwin Augustus said, "This man is a model of a man. Blessings." And Maria Etienne says, "God bless you, Reggie." From Dory Etienne and wife in the U.S. Good evening to you, Maria Etienne, our good friend.
Yes,
Reggie.
that's my girl self. Another committed stalwart of the party. She's not always happy with the way things going, but she's never missed one opportunity to support her party when the time comes. And then we can have that. Like I say, you won't always be happy with everything. You understand? The world have its challenges. We have all of our challenges, but Maria will never give up on her party. We talk all the time.
All right.
My girl.
Reggie?
Yes.
Your last words. Tell us how you felt tonight.
No, I think a lot of things I revealed tonight I've never revealed. And I still feel that there are a couple more that I have not revealed. I've never had that. I've spoken about a lot of things, but I've never had the opportunity to go so in depth in my political journey. And I really want to thank you for giving that opportunity. And I feel comfortable doing it because I have nothing to hide, my brother. Everything is up front and on the books. And if I had to do it again, the only thing I wish I'd be able to help more people. I think I've helped sufficient, but the only thing I would wish is that I could help more people along that journey. But I'm very proud of my family for what they've done, the contributions and sacrifices that they have made. To my team I started working with, I'll be forever grateful. We may not always see eye to eye. We have gone in different directions. We may not always see eye to eye, but I will never forget when I needed you guys the most, you guys were there. To the Labour Party people, you made me who I am, actually. You made me who I am. You make me believe in myself, that I can move you, that I can turn you on, that I can get you to listen, I can make you laugh, and I can make you happy. And for all the accolades that I have received, which are many, including the Dominica Award of Honor, I hold it for you because you're the creators of it, you made it happen. And Cecil, what it means to me is that the country recognizes, and any individual who receives a national award, especially at that level, should feel very, very proud of yourself and to feel satisfied and confident that you have served yourself, you have served your country, you have served your people, and you have served your family well. Cecil, I want to wish the Dominica Labour Party all the best in the future. I will always be there. I'm not going anywhere. I'm retired from active, well, I'm not even active politics because as long as my voice come back, I'll be active again. But I've retired from electoral politics, but I am here always ready to serve my party, always ready to serve my people, always ready to serve. I was born for service, I was made for service, and I will live for service. That is my life. I cannot change it. There is nothing more I can do about it. This is who Reginald Austrie is. Thanks for having me, Cecil. I'm very, very, very happy. And Brain, and to all the people who called and sent the messages, I'm very, very grateful and very happy that I could maintain the standard that Cecil Joseph has set for his Lakou program. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
And I want to say to you, thank you very much, Reginald Austrie, for a very beautiful program. Michael Roye said, Reggie, you are a politician voice. There is a lot of young politicians that can learn from you. Thank God for your improvement of your voice. Cecil and Adams, great program. Also, Renef Alexis said, great show. Another person, Rosalind Severin McLean said, congratulations on this powerful interview. Nadia Karam said, thanks Cecil for a wonderful program tonight. A good discussion. Lauren Binois said, really enjoyed the Lakou tonight. Very dynamic. Blessings and continue God's help and God's help, Mr. Austrie. Ian Dorival said he's watching. And Goldie said, God bless you, Mr. Austrie. Please stay safe. Labor rights, love you. We'll be back in Jesus' name. And the messages continue. Wow. While I think the program is ending, Reggie, that's when people are sending messages upon messages. Tina Bell said, great program, learned a lot. Daryl Titt said, well done, Reggie. And another person said, I appreciate how you spoke for your wife and children, role in the political life. Great program, sir. Thank you for your commitment, service to the country, and the people of Dominica. Hopeful we will have you back when your voice is fully recovered. Great wisdom, willing to share. Good night, sir. Cecil and Brain. Great program. Good job from Dora, and great interview, Mr. Austrie. Mr. Austrie, I really want to say to you, thank you very much. And to the viewers, tonight my telephone really went fast and furious with the numbers. And as we speak, it was at least, now as I speak, it's 154. It tells you that earlier on it was over 200, Reggie, and you really did a fantastic job tonight. And I want to say thank you so very much for that inspiration that you're able to give us. God bless you, and I hope that you'll reach home safe and that your voice will continue to improve as you continue.
Well, basically, as an educator myself, an evaluator for many years, I must say it was top of the line, and you got an A+ for your excellent delivery, and you took your time, and I must appreciate the fact that your lovely wife must appreciate you much more tonight when you go home. Thank you, Reggie, for being with us tonight.
And she didn't have to call. She didn't have to call.
She was listening.
She didn't have to call to say, Reggie, I think your voice is breaking. Reggie took his time.
Right.
Did
That was
not
good.
shout.
Mm-hmm.
And short. Can I take that last call quickly, Reggie?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear what that person has to say. Good evening. Is that the wife?
I don't know.
Good evening. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening. Well,
I suspect it may be the wife. She lost her voice.
But Reggie, it was a fantastic night.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the interview. I really enjoyed our discussion. And I really enjoyed the rapport that we had, and the kind of inspiration that you gave us, was really beautiful. And I want to thank you very much. Let's go. Let's see that person. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I appreciate Mr. Reggie a lot. I enjoy listening from the starting to the ending. I'm telling Reggie, I'm proud of him. Maybe know who's speaking, that's his good friend. Reggie?
From Thibault.
Yeah, Tabernacle.
But me and Tabernacle have a running joke, Me and Tabernacle have a running joke.
What's the running joke?
No, it's cricket, man. Tabernacle was playing cricket. And I think it was Thibault versus Cottage. And I was batting. And Tabernacle bowled me a ball. And I tell Tabernacle, boy, you slow boy, that you bowling me. And the next ball, Tabernacle ball a slow one and clean ball.
Tabernacle.
Thanks, Tabernacle. Thank you very much, my friend.
All right, thanks very much, Reggie.
Yeah, and faster one or slower one. Next ball.
Anyway, Reggie, I want to wish you traveling mercies. Thank you once again for your wisdom and inspiration to the many listeners and viewers tonight. Thanks, God.
Thank you, my brother. God bless. And take care, Cecil.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, Brain.
Thank you.
We'll keep in touch. And thanks again to all your listeners and all the people who commented and so on. I appreciate you very much. You're the reason why I am in politics, and as long as I can continue to serve you, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cigarette butts are being transformed into something new. Plastic waste is everywhere. Just so we understand the scale of this, according to the UN, globally, 2,000 garbage trucks full of plastic waste end up in our oceans and lakes every day. 2,000. And this is bad because plastic can take up to 1,000 years to break down. So essentially,